Chapter 161. A low gunshot sounded, and the unprepared Ulysses Crow was directly hit in the back, fell to the ground, and the gold vibrating weapon in his hand was also dropped aside. Looking at Ulysses Crow, who was lying motionless on the ground, Eric Kermangos did not relax his guard. He knew Ulysses Crow very well. With his cunning, he was likely to pretend to be ready to fight back. Almost at the same time that he fell, Eric continued to pull the trigger and shot 2 more shots. This time, Ulysses Crow seemed to be completely dead. His whole body was lying on the ground soft. The red blood in the hole of the gun slowly seeped out. It was dense behind him and soon dyed red. Eric approached Ulysses Crow carefully with his arms in both hands. As long as he had any action, Eric could shoot quickly without giving him a chance to fight back. Eric's caution proved to be right. Ulysses Crow is a bandit who can steal Zhenjin from Wakanda and retreat. 3 bullets that hit his back didn't kill him directly. He's been pretending to be dead and ready to fight back. When Eric came close to him and just stopped, Ulysses Crow, who had been lying on the ground like a corpse, turned quickly and held a pistol in his hand. Unfortunately, not to mention that he has been shot 3 times by himself at this time, it's the end of his tether. Eric Kermungo has been careful to guard against him. How could he succeed in sneaking attack? When Ulysses Crow's body suddenly moved, Eric's gun fired quickly. Bang, 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 bang. Just after Ulysses Crow's body turned over before he could raise his gun to aim, he was shot several times in his ribs and chest. He was already at the end of a strong bolt. He lost all his strength in a moment, and the gun in his hand fell down powerlessly. It's just that his eyes are still fierce towards Eric Kermungo. "You want to eat alone?" Ulysses Crow looked at Eric and asked, gnashing his teeth. He thought that Eric was fighting for the valuable gold in his hand. Eric Kermungo pointed his gun at him and shook his head slightly. "I want you to die." When Eric finished, without any more nonsense, he pulled the trigger and shot Ulysses Crow directly through his heart. His fierce eyes were completely dimmed. After kicking the pistol Julius Crow dropped beside him, Eric squatted down to confirm that he was really dead, and then stood up. A generation of fierce bandits, internationally known Zhenjin and weapon traffickers, Ulysses Crow, who caused huge damage and casualties in Wakanda, successfully escaped the pursuit of the Black Leopard, the guardian of the Kingdom of Wakanda, and finally died in the hands of his nephew abandoned by the Black Leopard. Eric, who had killed Ulysses Crow, stood up, turned around and looked in the direction he had come, only to see 2 black SUVs in the distance, which were the same as the one he had driven before, coming towards him quickly. That's Ulysses Crow's men. Just after receiving the task, Eric sped away 2 cars quietly and went back to the stronghold. After he killed Ulysses Crow, the 2 cars just came up. Eric Kermungo looked at the 2 cars flying towards him, the cold light flashing in his eyes. After inserting the gun back into the holster at his waist, Eric walked to the back of the car with a cold face, opened the trunk, and took out an automatic rifle with a sight glass and a grenade launcher under the barrel. Eric Kermungo held the gun in his hand and pulled the bolt open with a click. His strong arm held the rifle firmly in front of him. The butt of the gun was on his thick and solid shoulder. The muzzle of the gun moved slowly and firmly locked the 2 cross-country vehicles that were coming towards him. One of Ulysses Crow's men, who was running in front of an SUV, looked at the car parked in front of the temporary foothold warehouse not far in front of him. He rushed forward on the accelerator and complained, "Damn Eric Kermungo, get us so far away. He must have done it on purpose." The companion in the passenger seat beside him heard his complaint and couldn't help laughing. "Hey, keep your voice down. If the killer hears you, be careful of your life." The driver's face changed a little when he heard that. He thought of Eric Kermango's ferocity and ruthlessness. Compared with the murderous murderer, these people who followed Ulysses Crow in the arms smuggling business are only small roles. But he insisted that he didn't want to lose face in front of his companions. With boss, he dare not come around. The companion next to him wanted to continue to tease him, but suddenly found that the situation seemed to be a little wrong. He looked at the distance with wide eyes and shouted at the companion driving. "Something's wrong. Do you see a man lying on the ground next to that car?" The guy in the car also looked at it and found that there was a man lying on the ground, and from the clothes that the man wore, it seemed that he was their boss, Ulysses Crow. "It's boss. Damn it." The killer betrayed the boss. The two quickly informed their partners in the back of the car through the walkie-talkie. The two cars accelerated at the same time and rushed towards Eric Kermango. Just when they found out that it was wrong and started to accelerate, Eric Kermango opened the trunk of the car and took out an automatic rifle from it and turned to point at them. "Be careful, he's going to shoot. This bastard. Prepare to fight back and kill the traitor." Before they could respond, Eric Kermango aimed and quickly pulled the trigger, but instead of a bullet, they were waiting for a gun grenade. The front cross-country vehicle was hit by a grenade in an instant, and the power of the explosion directly blew the vehicle forward and rolled up. The hot flame came out of the broken window, and the whole vehicle became a big fireball, among which several of Ulysses Crow's men were all killed. The back of the SUV quickly stepped on the emergency brake and stopped. 4 Ulysses Crow's men rushed down from the car, hid in the car, took out their weapons and fought back at Eric Kermango. After Eric killed a car directly with a grenade, he didn't dodge but still stood in the same place, aimed at several people who came down from the car quickly through the sight of the rifle, and pulled the trigger. At this time, the distance between the two sides was more than 100 meters. The 4 Ulysses Crow. Even if there were bullets passing by him occasionally, it didn't affect him at all. The hand holding the gun was still as stable as a rock, and the cold look on his face didn't change at all. However, the bullets he fired quickly took away every life on the opposite side. The battle was soon over. Before one of the clips was finished, all 4 people in the opposite direction were killed by Eric Kermango. After throwing the rifle on the ground, Eric returned to Ulysses Crow's body, picked up the gold vibrating weapon that had fallen on the ground, and Eric dragged the body back to the car. Throwing Ulysses Crow's body in the trunk, Eric started the car and turned around to follow the map on his cell phone. Dozens of minutes later, when the local police arrived after tracking them down through surveillance, they saw only 2 severely damaged SUVs and several bodies that had fallen into a pool of blood. As for the few people in the first car, they had already been burned to ashes. By the time the belated police began to search the scene of the gun battle, Eric Kermango had driven into a more desolate, uninhabited mountain area. Turning around the foot of a hill, Eric turned into a small valley surrounded by several hills. A black sci-fi fighter plane is quietly crawling in the middle of the valley, waiting for his arrival. Looking at this advanced aircraft that obviously surpasses this era, Eric Kermango's eyes cannot help but flash a little excitement. He knows where the aircraft will take him, which means that his test has been completed, and he will be qualified to enter the headquarters of Hydra, Number 0 Human Base. There, he will officially become an internal member of Hydra, which is as extraordinary as a pilgrimage to the external preparatory members of Hydra, who were trained as a child. With excitement, Eric Kermango got off the SUV, picked up Ulysses Crow's body from the trunk and strode towards the fighter ahead. As he approached, the belly of the rear of the plane opened down, forming a ramp, and Eric, carrying Ulysses Crow's body, stepped up the ramp and walked toward the inside of the plane. After Eric Kermango had fully entered the plane, the ramp behind him slowly folded up and closed. Then the energy engine under the aircraft is started, and strong blue flame is ejected from the engine. The fighter rises slowly from the ground, accelerates abruptly under the push of the tail engine, flies towards the distance at a high speed, and soon disappears in the sky. Northwest Norway, deep in the Scandinavian mountains. A science fiction, amazing speed black fighter jet with a dazzling blue flame at the rear, flying through the deep fjord, towards a high mountain covered with ice and snow. After the fighter approached, a passage suddenly opened on the mountain. The black fighter entered the passage and disappeared. Then the cracked mountain closed slowly and recovered. The dark nine-headed snake fighter rushed straight to the mountain wall and flew into the huge mountain from the hidden channel suddenly opened on the mountain wall. Chapter 162. Eric Kermungo finally reached the shrine in his heart, Hydra headquarters, top secret base No. 0. When he arrived at the top secret base, Eric Kermungo was taken away. Like every elite member who completed the assessment and entered the base for the first time, he started a series of physical examination, test, evaluation, training, and further brainwashing procedures. When all these works are completed, they will receive different levels of super soldier serum fortification according to everyone's situation. Of course, most of them are injected with improved serum, which is the lowest risk and the highest success rate of fortification. Even if these people have passed the rigorous assessment and formally joined Hydra, they are all the elite of the 10,000, whose willpower is far stronger than the ordinary people. However, like Chen Mo and Steve, there are still a few people who can bear the transformation of intensive serum. This super soldier serum, which is more powerful than the original serum, has two strict requirements on willpower. In the past 70 years, less than 10 people have met the conditions for the use of fortified serum and successfully fortified it after injection. Every elite warrior is the precious treasure of Hydra. Without full assurance, they will not be allowed to take the risk of being strengthened by the enhanced serum. The effect of the improved serum has been very strong. 3 times of ordinary people's physical quality can hardly meet their opponents in the outside world. In addition, they have received all kinds of strict training since they were young. After strengthening, their strength is very strong, which is enough for them to maintain the absolute strength advantage and complete any arduous task. There is no need to let a large number of Hydra elite die in vain in order to pursue stronger power. Therefore, the tests before strengthening are very strict. The strength of willpower directly determines the level of strengthening serum they can use and their future combat power. From boarding the advanced 9-headed snake fighter to entering the secret base of the headquarters, Eric Kermungo was almost in a calm mood. What he saw and heard along the way made him deeply feel the power of the 9-headed snake. The cutting-edge technology beyond the times, the magnificent top-secret base hidden in the huge mountains, and even everyone he met along the way shocked him. Whether it's a guard soldier who is completely armed, holding the shape of science fiction in his hand, who can be seen by his appearance as an unknown rifle weapon with absolutely amazing power, or a middle-aged man in a white coat and a gentle man, who can be seen as a scientific researcher, or even a young woman in a short skirt and holding a document and passing in front of him in a hurry. They all exude a faint breath. Eric Kermungo, who has a keen sense of it, feels a great threat. That is to say, not only the guards, but also the unarmed scientific research and civilian personnel in the headquarters base, whose strength should be above him and can pose a huge threat to him. He was shocked by the discovery. He believed in his feelings. Over the years, his feelings had never been wrong, but he is still a little unbelievable. His strength is very strong in the outside world. He is the top one. Over the years, he has experienced countless battles, killed thousands of enemies, and no one is his opponent. Even the soldiers in the base, after all, are the defense forces in the headquarters. They are definitely the most elite soldiers. With the weapons that are powerful at first sight, they can pose a threat to him. But what's the matter with those scientific research and civilian personnel? How can they be better than him? Eric Kermungo's doubts didn't last long, and soon someone answered them. Before, he didn't know much about Hydra. For him, Hydra was more like a high and ethereal temple, and he could only look up. Hydra is his savior. When his father was killed and he and his mother were alone and helpless, Hydra saved them, settled his mother, and provided him with an unusual life path, a path to become a strong man and control his own and other people's lives. Without Hydra, he and his mother may have been killed in a dark alley or died quietly in a simple house under the torture of hunger and illness. In the best case, he was just a gangster in a slum. His life was doomed to be dark. Now he graduated from a famous university, joined the SEAL Commando and the United States Special Operations Command, and became a powerful fighter, the god of death on the battlefield. He enjoys the feeling of mastering his own life and other people's life and death, and what changed his life and gave him all this is Hydra. It was Hydra who rescued him from the abyss of despair, shaped him, and finally achieved him. He is willing to give his loyalty and faith to Hydra and devote the rest of his life to Hydra. Now, his loyalty and dedication are recognized, and he will officially become a member of the Hydra. That feeling is like a believer stepping into the temple and being allowed to serve God. It was from this moment that he got a deeper understanding of the ethereal temple. Hydra, their great leader, eternal master and powerful deity, was created. Like their name, the deity they believed in was the mighty Hydra in the myth. According to the legend, Hydra had 9 heads. Every time one head was cut off, 2 will be regenerated. No one really knows whether the myths and legends are true, but he does have many identities in the world. The Red Skull during World War II is one of them. As for other identities, except for the base commander and Colonel John, no one else is entitled to know. But he still learned that everyone he saw after entering the base made him feel threatened. It turns out that 70 years ago, when their gods left the world and returned to the kingdom of God, they left 3 kinds of magic water. Anyone who has passed the strict examination of Hydra and become a full member can accept the strengthening of magic water according to their own conditions, so as to get the powerful power given by the gods. And all the people in the top secret base are full members of Hydra. All of them have been strengthened by Shenshui, which is why even the strength of scientific research personnel and civil servants are above him. Although Eric Kermungo's strength is powerful among ordinary people, compared with the power given by the gods, it is really weak. She can suppress him by connecting the weakest strengthened female civil servants. Eric Kermungo, who was informed of this amazing news, was shocked but also secretly looking forward to it. I thought I was very strong, but I didn't expect that there was a bottom-up presence in the base. How powerful the power given by the gods was. Eric couldn't help but look forward to the day when he accepted the reinforcement. At the same time, he also had a new understanding of the Hydra god. Previously, he only knew that Hydra was an organization created by God and the world, with the purpose of secretly supervising the whole world, protecting the safety of the earth, and preventing the invasion of foreign forces. Once upon a time, although he was loyal to Hydra and believed in the spirit that created them, he didn't quite understand the purpose of Hydra. What does the external power mean? For their God, though he believed in him devoutly, he didn't know much about his deeds. At this time, he heard about all these things, but he had a deeper understanding of God. It turned out that God was not only an illusory existence, but also he really came to the world and created miracles. Albert, the current commander of Hydra, was appointed by God 70 years ago. Before that, he was a white-haired old man. On the day when he was appointed as commander by God, he suddenly became dozens of years younger and became a middle-aged man with strong energy. He has been in charge of Hydra until today. There were many servants of God of his time, some of whom were sleeping in the earth, some of whom were in charge of various affairs in the base. Eric Kermungo slowly digested all this amazing, while waiting for the strengthening day to come. A few days later, a series of routine programs were completed, and his test results were delivered to Chen Mo. Eric Kermango is not just an ordinary nine-headed snake member who passed the examination. His identity is very special, which is related to Chen Mo's next series of plans. It is not allowed that Chen Mo does not pay special attention to it and asks for it in person. Albert stood at his desk and said to Chen Mo, "Based on previous reinforcement experience, Eric Kermango's willpower is strong enough to withstand the transformation of the enhanced super soldier serum, with a 95% success rate." Chen Mo looks at one of the data in the report, nods gently, participates in and completes the development and experiment of the improved super soldier serum, and accepts the enhanced Chen Mo's knowledge of the serum. Indeed, as Albert said, Eric Kermango's willpower and other relevant data are excellent, and accepts the enhanced super soldier serum. There is no problem with the transformation. Strengthen it immediately. Chen Mo put the report back on the table and said in a deep voice, "Yes." The long-awaited Eric Kermango finally accepted the enhancement of magic water, which is the highest level and the most effective. Eric is very satisfied with this, which shows that his qualification is the best, and his strength after strengthening is the strongest. Although the process of strengthening is very painful, it is worth it. After strengthening, Eric has 5 times the physical quality of ordinary people, plus his own strong fighting ability and rich combat experience, and has the strength comparable to the captain of the United States. Before he could return from the joy of his rising power, it is said that Colonel John, who was God's servant 70 years ago, appeared in front of Eric Kermango. Looking at Eric, who is bigger and more majestic than before and looks like a fierce human, John nodded with satisfaction, then waved to the soldiers behind him to bring the new uniform. "Clean up, soldier. God wants to see you." Under the personal leadership of Colonel John, Eric Kermango entered Chen Mo's office with great excitement and apprehension. Chapter 163. Eric knelt down excitedly when he saw Chen Mo sitting at the back of the broad desk. "Long live the Hydra!" Eric Kermango knelt down devoutly. His body trembled with excitement in his heart, and finally he saw the god of faith. As for Chen Mo's Asian appearance, he didn't feel any accident. He had known for a long time that Hydra, the god of Hydra, had many parts in the world. Before, he only knew that there was Schmidt, the Red Skull. Obviously, the Asian appearance in front of him was only one of the parts of God. "Get up." Chen Mo's voice was not loud, but it was full of supreme majesty, which shocked Eric's heart and soul. It took decades to cultivate Hydra. It was not only the loyal soldiers of Hydra, but also the most devout believers of Chen Mo. They believed in Chen Mo very firmly. Yes, to be able to see the great God of faith in person and listen to God's teachings raised an unparalleled glory and excitement in Eric's heart. Hearing Chen Mo's words, Eric immediately responded respectfully and stood up from the ground. Looking at Eric Kermango standing in front of him, Chen Mo nodded with satisfaction. From the outside, Eric was very brave. Eric Kermango, who was originally tall and strong, was transformed by the enhanced super soldier serum. He was more than 2 meters tall, and his muscles were very strong. He held up his combat suit high and full of explosive force. In addition, his strong breath and sharp eyes are like ancient fierce animals, giving people a huge deterrent. Of course, in front of Chen Mo, it is more like a tamed beast, strong and docile. What they talked about in the office was unknown. The next day, after one night's repair and preparation, they set out from the base on the Hydra to Africa. The speed of the Hydra broke out at full speed. It was amazing. It soon crossed the whole European continent to the south, reached the northeast of Africa, tens of kilometers from the border of the Kingdom of Wakanda, and landed slowly in a desert. The yellow sand and dust on the ground were blown by the strong airflow from the engine, flying around the fighter until the plane stopped and the engine was shut down, and the dust in the sky slowly dissipated. The hatch in the belly of the plane slowly opened, and Chenmo and Eric Kermango came down from the plane, carrying a huge bag on Eric's shoulder. After getting off the plane, they didn't stop. They walked directly to one side. A small propeller plane was parked not far from the Hydra. In order to avoid causing unnecessary doubt and trouble, they would fly this ordinary plane directly into the territory of Wakanda. As a top special fighter, Eric Kermango has received systematic combat, shooting and special operations training, including the driving of various fighters. It's no surprise to start this small propeller aircraft. The package was thrown into the luggage compartment at the rear of the plane. The two people boarded the plane. In the unique hum of propeller plane, after a period of taxiing, the plane took off and flew towards the territory of Wakanda. Behind them, the hatch of the Hydra slowly closed, and the energy engine spewed out blue flames. It rose steadily. At the same time, it turned its nose and flew to the north, disappearing into the sky. Across the border of Wakanda, the surrounding landscape began to change. The desolate Gobi gradually disappeared and replaced by endless green grasslands. Eric Kermango on the plane looked at the vast grassland around him and the dense jungle in the distance. His eyes were very complex. This was his hometown, Wakanda, which he had never been to before. Take it back. Eric Kermango controls the plane to descend slowly. In the distance, a small and simple village appears in their sight. The plane landed a few hundred meters away from the village. Eric Kermango pulled the huge bag from the luggage compartment and carried it on his shoulder. He followed Chenmo and walked towards the village. People in the village also found their arrival, and several Wakanda people wearing blue coats with strange patterns rode to them. They are warriors of the Wakanda border tribe. They live in the Wakanda border as hunters and herdsmen. They deceive the outside world and hide the fact that Wakanda has developed science and technology. At the same time, they also shoulder the responsibility of protecting Wakanda. Chenmo's eyes lingered on their blue cape. According to the plot of the movie, it seems to be a common cape full of African national characteristics. In fact, it contains high technology. Under the ordinary appearance, it is actually made of Zhenjin by special technology, which can stimulate a powerful energy shield to resist the attack of sonic gun. In a large fence beside the village, there are several large rhinos. These rhinos are raised by the border tribe since they were young. They can obey their orders. After equipped with heavy steel armor, they are powerful enough to crash the armored vehicles and crash people to the ground with only bones broken. At the moment, they just look like some gentle big guys pacing slowly in the fence. The border tribe soldiers disguised as herdsmen in the village made a quick response after discovering the airplanes flying in the air. When they just got off the airplanes, before they had gone far, several soldiers on horseback came to them. Eric Kermango's extraordinarily tall and strong appearance obviously made them wary. Several soldiers scattered to both sides and surrounded them. Their eyes were firmly fixed on them. The hand under the cloak had seized the weapon and was ready to attack. One of the leaders, who looked like a leader, looked at Chenmo and Eric Kermango, who stopped, glanced at the huge bag on Eric's shoulder and asked seriously, "What is this?" Chenmo did not speak. He had recognized the leader, Wakabi, the leader of Wakanda border tribe and general of Wakanda army. Wakabi's questioning eyes turned to Eric, who was carrying the bag. Eric calmly looked at him and said with ease, "A gift." Eric Kermango finished, threw the bag on his shoulder to the ground and bent to open it. His action obviously shocked several border tribe soldiers behind Wakabi. They quickly drew weapons from the wind and attacked Eric. Fortunately, Wakabi extended his arms to stop them in time. He wanted to see what gifts the two strangers brought. As Eric opened the bag, Ulysses Crow's vivid face appeared in everyone's eyes. Wakabi stepped forward 2 steps, looked down at the body in the bag, confirmed that it was Ulysses Crow, raised his head. Wakabi looked seriously at Eric Kermango, who was tall and strong with a strong beast-like breath, and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Wakanda hunted the enemy for decades, and Ulysses Crow was killed, and the news of the corpse spread rapidly among Wakanda's high-level officials. The 4 tribal elders and important figures such as the king, queen, prince and princess who heard the news were all gathered in the palace hall. Because of the great relationship between the two, Chen and Mo were taken by Wakabi into the hidden capital of Wakanda, and they are coming to the palace. They want to see who brought their biggest enemy to Wakanda. Before they arrived, a heated debate broke out among a group of senior officials, because according to Wakabi's report, one of them claimed to be a Wakanda, but they did not know his existence. The argument stopped when Chenmo and Eric Kermango were brought into the chamber by Wakabi. Looking at Eric Kermango, who is tall, powerful, and formidable, everyone in the conference hall can't help but think of one person, the only leader of the Jabari tribe who hasn't been present in the 5 tribes, M'Baku, who is as tall and strong as the two, just like a human beast, and the person in front of him looks bigger and stronger than M'Baku. Is he from the Jabari tribe? Such a tall and strong body can only be possessed by the people of Jabari tribe who live in the high mountains in Wakanda. Even in Jabari tribe, he is definitely the strongest. That makes sense. Why do they know nothing about this foreigner who calls himself Wakanda? Of all the 5 tribes, only the Jabari tribe refuses to use technology and lives in isolation on the mountains. They don't have much interaction with them. They naturally don't know about their exiled people. It's just that the facts are obviously not as simple as they guessed. At the first sight of Eric Kermango, King Tekaka was shocked. The man's face was so familiar with him, so similar to that man, that he could not help but think of some unforgettable events that he deliberately forgot and didn't want to think of. Chen Mo and Eric Kermango enter the meeting hall and stand in front of the crowd. Although they bring their enemies who have been hunted for decades, they are still tied up because their details are not clear. Chen Mo doesn't care about this. As long as he wants to, he can break away at any time. He stands there quietly and takes a panoramic view of the faces of all the people in front of him. The violent fluctuation of Tekaka's eyes doesn't escape his vision. "Why are you here?" asked the elder of the oldest merchant tribe. "I stand on your side and punish those who steal Zhenjin and kill your people." "Do what your king can't do," said Eric Kermango proudly. "What do you want?" The elder of the mining tribe with a red braid next to him then inquired. Glancing at a group of Wakanda executives across the street, Eric Kermango said in a low voice, "I want the throne. I want the throne." Chapter 164. Eric Kermango's words make everyone laugh. Is the supreme king of Wakanda coveted by an unknown outsider? Joke, what qualifications do you have for the throne? Who do you think you are? But what happened next hit them hard in the face. In front of the crowd, Eric Kermango spoke directly about his real identity. "I'm Nijadaka, son of Prince Nikobi. My father's chest was scratched by leopard claws. You are not the king, you are a murderer," said Eric Kermango in a high voice, staring at King Tekaka, the color-changed king on the throne. "What? Is he the son of Prince Nikolab?" Hearing the words, all the elders were shocked and couldn't help but stand up and exclaim. Prince Nijab has been missing for decades. Unexpectedly, the visitor claimed to be his son. The most amazing thing is that he said that Prince Nijab died in the Black Leopard. If he said it was true, that is to say, King Tekaka killed his brother, Prince Nijab. "You lie." The queen, who sat next to Terchaka, stood up and scolded loudly. "I'm afraid he didn't lie, Queen." Wakabi, the border tribal general who brought Eric Kermango, suddenly said that when everyone looked at him, he took out a necklace with a special ring in it. All the people present are the senior officials of Wakanda. They are familiar with this ring. It's a prince ring that only the male members of Wakanda royal family are entitled to wear. It's forged by vibrating gold in a unique way of Wakanda. It's impossible to imitate it at all. Therefore, the identity of Eric Kermango can be determined. He's really a descendant of Prince Nigel. Seeing that his identity has been recognized by the public, Eric Kermango directly questioned the king, T'Chaka, why he killed his own brothers and left them outside. Until now, he has gone through many hardships to kill the criminals who attacked Wakanda and return home. For 30 years as the king and guardian panther of Wakanda, you have no achievements, you are cowardly and incompetent. Killing hands and feet, abandoning relatives, no benevolence and no virtue. What qualification do you have to continue to occupy the throne of the king? Today, I, Nini Jadaka, son of Prince Nichab, exercise my right to challenge you for the throne of the king and the panther. T'Chaka was revealed the most reluctant to mention, the most secret past, the regret of killing his brother, and the guilt of abandoning his family once again. After decades of repression, this mood broke out again, but it became extremely strong. The whole person of T'Chaka became a little lost. Facing the angry questioning of Eric Kermango, T'Chaka dared not even look into his eyes. After decades of lies, they are still exposed. It took a long time for T'Chaka to slowly raise his head and watch Eric Kermango say in a low voice, "You are right. I'm really not qualified to continue to lead and protect Wakanda. I decided to give up the throne." Mr. T'Chaka's words surprised everyone. "T'Chaka, Dad." When the queen and the prince and the princess heard his words, their faces changed greatly. They had not recovered from the shock of knowing that T'Chaka had killed their brother and left their nephew behind. They were caught by T'Chaka's act of abdicating the throne. A group of elders and generals also looked at each other and were at a loss for a while. Just as people were flustered by this sudden change, Wakabi, the general of the border tribe, said suddenly, "Now that King T'Chaka has given up the throne, then Prince Nijab's son, Nijadaka, will be our new king." Wakabi's parents were killed by the bomb he detonated at the border when Ulysses Crow infiltrated Wakanda and successfully stole Zenjin, so his hatred for Ulysses Crow was stronger than anyone else. It's just that for decades, as king and panther, though he has been chasing Ulysses Crow, he has never really caught him. He has been disappointed in him for a long time, and his dissatisfaction with him is as strong as his hatred for Ulysses Crow. At this time, the appearance of Eric Kermango undoubtedly brought him a huge surprise. The son of Prince Nijab, who was abandoned by the king of T'Chaka, killed Ulysses Crow and avenged him. He was very grateful to Eric Kermango for his revenge. In addition to his disappointment and dissatisfaction with T'Chaka, the identity of Eric Kermango's royal blood, and his strong strength and resolute style of action, he did not hesitate to support Eric Kermango to become a new king. As a warrior, he was tired of the self-contained life under the rule of T'Chaka. He was eager to fight, to let Wakanda out of hiding, to tell the world that Wakanda was powerful. He could see that Eric Kermango, like him, was a real fighter. He believed that Eric Kermango was very suitable to be the king of Wakanda, and he would be able to better protect Wakanda and lead it to become more powerful. General Wakabi's words made a group of elders come back from shock and bewilderment. They looked at the terrified T'Chaka and then at Eric Kermango, who was full of heroic spirit. Several elders looked at each other and nodded their heads, said the elder of the merchant tribe. Since King T'Chaka automatically gave up the throne, the challenger Nijadaka will take over. From now on, wait. When the young prince standing next to him saw that the situation had suddenly changed so dramatically, his father gave up the throne voluntarily, and he was shocked. The elders all began to admit that the suddenly appeared man became king. The shocked prince immediately stopped him. "I am the prince of the kingdom of Wakanda, and I have the right to inherit the throne." Several elders looked at each other when hearing the words. The elders of the merchant tribe thought about it and said, Prince Nijadaka challenged King Turchaka. If he gave up, he would give up his throne to Prince Nijadaka. So at this time, Nijadaka is our king. When he heard that, his face changed greatly. He was about to speak, but he heard the elder continue. Prince Tekara, if you want to fight for the throne, you can challenge in the waterfall duel at the ceremony of accession. Before he could speak, Eric Kermango, who had been untied by the general, stepped forward 2 steps and looked down at him. Very well, let's follow the tradition and speak with strength. The winner in the duel will become the king of Wakanda, the real black leopard. Their eyes collided in the air, as if there were countless intense sparks. A week later, in the middle of the majestic and ancient waterfall, a pool with its back against the cliff and its front facing the abyss and knee-deep, the ceremony of King Wakanda's accession to the throne is being held here. Behind the pool on the steep cliff stood the clansmen of all the tribes of Wakanda, all wearing the most grand tribal costumes. For thousands of years, the King of Wakanda's accession ceremony has been held here, and the content of the ceremony has never changed. The king will accept the challenge of the 5 tribal people and other members of the royal family who want to fight for the king's throne in the pool, and they can truly ascend the throne after victory, which is their unchanging tradition for thousands of years. When the great priest Zuli came to the Tekala Noodles kneeling in the pool with a bowl of potion and was about to take it for him, Eric Kermango spoke. "What is this?" In the face of the king's inquiry, Zuli made an explanation. According to tradition, the king of Wakanda is also the panther who guards the kingdom. They take heart-shaped herbs and their bodies are strengthened. Their strength is far beyond ordinary people. In order to maintain the fairness of duel, the black leopard needs to drink the elixir to remove the powerful power brought by heart-shaped herbs when accepting other people's challenges, so as to ensure the fairness of power between both sides of duel. Eric Kermungo didn't take heart-shaped herbs and naturally didn't need to be lifted. But at this time, Tekara has taken heart-shaped herbs and become a new panther. After growing old these years, he handed over the responsibility of the panther to his only son and the only heir apparent to the kingdom. It's just that after years of being a black leopard, he still hasn't caught Ulysses Crow, which is nothing. That's why the general was totally disappointed in their father and son and turned to Eric Kermungo. For the sake of fairness, he should drink the medicine to relieve the heart-shaped herbal power before duel. But Eric Kermungo shook his head and said proudly, "No need. Let him duel with me with the strongest strength. I want you to know that I am the strongest protector of Wakanda, the real panther." Seeing Eric Kermungo's tough attitude, Zuli had to obey his orders and hand the medicine to the people behind him, even though it was against the tradition. It seems unfair. It seems that T'Challa has taken a lot of advantage. But except for Chen Mo, no one knows that Eric Kermango has been strengthened by the enhanced super soldier serum, which is 5 times the strength of ordinary people. According to Chen Mo's conjecture, from the battle between the captain of the United States and the panther in the movie, the strength of the 2 men is basically the same. The effect of heart-shaped herbs should be similar to that of the original super soldier serum, which can improve the quality of people to about 4 times that of ordinary people. That is to say, even if T'Challa takes heart-shaped herbs, he is not an opponent of Eric Kermungo. Of course, the people in Wakanda didn't know that. Eric Kermungo allowed T'Challa to retain the power of heart-shaped herbs and fight him with the strength of a panther. Chapter 165. The Wakanda people are amazed at Eric Kermungo's toughness and self-confidence. Although the technology of Wakanda is very developed nowadays, the tradition handed down from thousands of years is still well maintained. Just like their Presbyterian system and the waterfall pool challenge ceremony before the king ascended the throne, the Wakanda people still worship the strong in their hearts. If he can really defeat the panther with the powerful power given by Panther God, he is the most powerful warrior in Wakanda, which proves that Eric Kermango is the new and stronger guardian chosen by Panther God for them, leading Wakanda to a powerful new king. Of course, some people think that he is too arrogant to challenge the guardian panther, who has the powerful power given by Panther God. People who originally thought highly of him could not help changing their mind. Whether the power of Panther can be overcome by ordinary people, he will pay the price for his arrogance. Seeing that Zully had put away the potion, T'Challa rose slowly from the pool and came to Eric Kermango. Since he is so big and wants to challenge the power of the panther, he doesn't mind giving him a lesson. Eric Kermango took off his gorgeous king's dress, and a servant behind him hurriedly took over the dress and retreated to one side. Eric strode to the center of the pool, opposite to T'Challa. At this time, both of them were naked, with strong body and sharp muscles fully displayed in front of the crowd. As a panther, T'Challa is already very strong, but Eric Kermango's figure is even more shocking. It's a huge body more than 2 meters tall, with muscles bulging up, solid and powerful. It's full of explosive force. It's like 2 arms made of steel. It's thicker than Zara's thigh. It seems that one fist can beat people into meat mud. 2 long and strong thighs are more like iron pillars. It's estimated that they're not lighter than the siege hammer. The broad and hard chest muscle in front of the chest is like a heavy iron shield on both sides. It contains powerful power, and it seems to be able to resist the fierce attack. The broad shoulder back, strong waist and abdomen, block by block with sharp edges and corners, and the solid muscle full of the sense of power all show the terrorist power contained in this huge body, like a human fierce beast out of ancient times, full of a tremendous force that shakes the heart. All the people watching over the waterfall marveled and understood his confidence. The strength of such a magnificent body must be amazing. No wonder he was so confident. He allowed T'Challa to retain the strength of the panther after strengthening the heart-shaped herbal medicine. People who thought he was too big to be defeated by T'Challa were not sure who won or who lost. Before the battle officially started, the 2 priests, each carrying a container, drew the ancient totem pattern of Wakanda on their bodies to show that their duel was recognized by the Panther God. While the priests were carrying out the ancient ceremony, under the cliff behind the pool, standing beside Chen Mo, Princess Wakanda Surui suddenly turned to look at Chen Mo. When Chen Mo and Eric Kermango entered the palace hall that day, everyone's attention was focused on killing Ulysses Crow, the son of Prince Nikolab, who came to fight for the throne. Eric didn't pay much attention to Chen Mo, just thought he was Eric's subordinate. When T'Challa gave up the throne and Eric became king, Wakabi directly released his shackles. After that, Chen Mo became a VIP of Wakanda as the king's comrade in arms to help kill Ulysses Crow. It is for this reason that he can now stand by the pool with a group of elders and members of the royal family to watch the battle and witness the sacred king challenge ceremony. I know who you are. Princess Surui turned her head to look at Chen Mo's side face and said in a deep voice. Chen Mo hears the words but doesn't respond. His eyes are still fixed on the 2 people in the pool, completely unmoved. Surui was so angry that she bit her teeth. You are Commander Chen Mo. 70 years ago, you drove the Hydra's super bomber, the Valkyrie, into the sea and was frozen in a glacier. A scientific expedition found it not long ago, and you came to life after the thaw. Chen Mo didn't seem to hear what she said at all and still didn't respond. Surui stares at Chen Mo and says angrily, It's all on TV, but I know. You now appear to be a major general of the U.S. Army, but in fact, you are a senior officer of the Bureau of Homeland Strategic Defense, Attack and Logistics Support of the International Secret Service, Commander of the Special Forces. Chen Mo then turned to Surui. It seems that the intelligence organization of Wakanda is not useless, but has found some fur. Don't you aim to maintain world peace and protect human security? How could you be with this evil murderer? Chen Mo sniffs the speech to smile slightly, looking at Su Rui's eyes to say slowly, "Evil, not necessarily." Chen Mo finished, did not pay attention to the side of the Princess Su Rui, turned to look at the pool. The priest drew the totem and retreated. In the pool, the two people who completed the pre-war ceremony took their own weapons, their bare upper body, the ancient totem, the traditional cold weapons of Wakanda, and the two people in the challenge pool faced each other with awe like the two most primitive soldiers. He had a shield in his left hand, a sharp spear in his right hand, a spear in Eric Kermango's hand, and a broad, heavy knife in his other. Their weapons look ordinary, but they are actually made of precious zhenjin, which is extremely sharp. Seeing that they were ready, Zuli the high priest raised the magnificent spear in his hand. Challenge start. With the high priest Zuli's spear to the ground, a command, the battle between the two officially began. The two men rushed forward almost at the same time. The knee-high pool water could not stop their forward speed at all. When they rushed forward, the huge force pushed the pool water away and splashed high. In the spray of water, they hit each other heavily. Eric Kermungo directly raised his heavy long knife and chopped it towards the head of T'Challa, who quickly raised his shield to block the heavy blow. At the beginning, Eric deliberately controlled his own strength. The two men seemed to be close to each other. The strength was equal and the fight was fierce. The eyes of the spectators were completely attracted by the fierce battle between the two men. They also realized that Eric Kermango was not blindly entrusted with greatness, but really had this strength. They can't help but be shocked by his strength. The Black Leopard is the guardian of them for generations, blessed by the Panther God, and has far more powerful power than ordinary people. Eric Kermango has never taken heart-shaped herbs to gain the powerful power given by the Panther God, but he can play up and down with T'Challa, which has to shock them. However, they were shocked a little earlier. After a fierce battle, Eric Kermango soon found out the strength of Terra. His physical quality, as Chen Mo said, was about 4 times that of ordinary people, and his fighting skills were quite good, but compared with him, he was still a lot worse. When he got to the bottom of the story, Eric didn't want to delay any longer. When T'Challa tried his best to chop at him with a short spear, Eric's long knife in his right hand cut out the spear. With great force, the spear in T'Challa's hand was directly cut off and flew out of his hand and inserted into the rock under his feet. It didn't stop there. While T'Challa was still in Mongolia, Eric's short spear in his left hand stabbed him quickly. When the weapon was released, T'Challa quickly raised his shield to resist, and his free right hand was under the shield. Nevertheless, Eric's stab made him step back. The spear's attack was stopped, but Eric didn't stop, and when T'Challa reacted, the knife in his right hand hit the shield again. Next, 2 weapons in Eric's hands came out in turn, and he launched a fierce attack on the shield that was firmly held up by T'Challa. The huge force made his hands numb, and his feet were constantly retreating with each attack, and he soon retreated to the edge of the cliff. Just as he was about to fall off the cliff, Eric Kermango dropped the spear of his left hand and grabbed the edge of the shield that he was holding. His thick arm pulled back and threw him and his shield into the pool behind him. He fell heavily into the knee-deep pool, and his shield flew out of his hand and fell to one side. Although he lost his weapon completely and fell to the ground in a panic, he finally escaped the result of being hit off the cliff. But before the Queen and other people put down their hearts, Eric Kermungo went back and strode to the front of T'Challa, inserted the long knife on the ground, and Eric raised his iron fist, which was a heavy fist towards the newly risen T'Challa, and knocked him down heavily. When he got up again, he was greeted with a swift and incomparable punch, which hit him heavily on the chest, accompanied by the sound of bone fracture. After being knocked down again and again, he got up again and again, but the time he spent was longer and longer, and the time he insisted on was shorter and shorter. Even if Eric Kermango had some reservations and didn't exert all his strength, the continuous pounding still made him fractured in many places and hurt his internal organs. After falling to the ground again, he tried hard for a long time, but he couldn't do it. After all, I got up and fell to my knees in the pool, completely losing the ability of resistance. Under the complicated eyes of all the people, Eric Kermungo pulled out the long knife inserted in the side, went to the front of Tichara, slowly raised the knife, ready to cut to the kneeling Tichara. Chapter 166. No, Tichara, stand up. Princess Suri cried anxiously, and the queen could not help but cover her mouth, and her eyes were full of fear. Although the former king, Terchaka, did not speak, the tense look and anxious eyes on his face showed everything. However, the sacred challenge ceremony is not allowed to be interrupted. Only after one party surrendered or died, the ceremony will be finished. At this time, the heart of Tekaka is full of hope. Tekala can admit defeat and lose the throne. He doesn't care, but he can't lose his son. Tichara. It's a pity that the stubborn Ticharas has no intention to admit defeat. Although he was seriously injured and knelt on the ground and couldn't get up, his eyes are still full of unyielding and insistence. Just as Eric Kermungo's long knife was cutting towards Tekara, a spear suddenly stabbed him from the side, blocking his long knife. They looked down the spear, only to find that Ziuli, the high priest who had been standing aside, stopped in time, broke the challenge ceremony, and saved Tekara. Of course, this is also because Eric has some reservations and doesn't make full use of the relationship. Otherwise, if Eric makes full use of the attack, Ziuli can't stop it in any way. Let him go. If you want to kill me, kill me. It was because of me that your father would die. As he said this, Ziuli released his hand holding the spear and let it fall into the pool. Eric's eyes were filled with death. Over the years, he could not let go of what happened in those years. Although he never admitted it, they did something wrong. Today, let him redeem himself with his own life. Eric Kermungo heard the cold light in his eyes and stared at Ziuli. As God said, Ziuli was the cause of his father's death. Eric put down his long knife and went to Ziuli. The incapacitated Terchara and the queen, Princess Suri, and other people immediately stopped. No, Ziuli, no. In the crowd's anxious cry, Eric went to Ziuli and looked down on him coldly, but he didn't kill him directly with a knife as they thought. Instead, he looked into his eyes and asked coldly, "You can plead guilty." "I guilty." Ziuli fell to his knees and lowered his head deeply. The river reflected his face, which was full of pain and regret and a trace of relief. Although he didn't kill the prince himself, he died because of him. Most importantly, he and the king, Terchaka, left Eric Kermango's mother and son to their own death. Although Nichab is guilty, his wife and children are innocent. They are the people of Wakanda and deserve to be taken back to Wakanda to get their deserved status, rights, and life, rather than struggling to survive in the slums. But they chose to escape because of their own mistakes and abandoned their compatriots, which is the most unforgivable place for him. For more than 20 years, remorse still surged from his heart and tortured him from time to time. He also went back secretly to see how their mother and son lived, but he couldn't find them in any way, as if they had completely disappeared in the world. Ziuli once thought that they had been killed and lost the protection of their husband and father. It was very difficult for orphans and widows to survive in this chaotic slum. They might have died under the knife of a gangster who had entered the house and robbed them, or they might have been shot in a dark corner. Both of them died because of their original cowardice and escape. Ziuli, who came back from the United States, was completely discouraged. In spite of the reuse and retention of Tekaka, he gave up the status of war dog director of the intelligence department of Wakanda and threw himself into the embrace of leopard god and became a priest. When he learned that Eric Kermungo was the son of Prince Nichab, Ziuli's mood was extremely complicated. It turns out that he didn't die, and Zuli's heart couldn't help but rejoice. In this way, he will have a chance to redeem himself. Zuli agreed with T'Chaka's abdication of the throne to Eric Kermungo. He deserved it. They owed it to him, and it was not enough to offset the harm they had done to Eric, but he had nothing to do with it. When he became a priest, Zuli never married and had no children. He always regarded him as his son when he was growing up. Seeing that he was about to die in order to fight for the throne, Eric Kermango's sword fell. Zuli could not care about anything else. He resolutely violated the tradition and rules of the challenge ceremony, stretched out the priest's spear in his hand, blocked the sword cut by Eric Kermango, and saved T'Chara. T'Chara is innocent. He should not have been involved. Zuli is willing to use his own life to end all this to make up for his fault. Eric Kermungo looked down at Zuli, who was kneeling in front of him, turned his head to the former king, T'Chaka, and asked in a deep voice, "T'Chaka, you can plead guilty." In the complicated eyes of all the people, the complex-looking T'Chaka slowly stepped into the baptism pool, came to Eric, and fell on his knees in the pool water. "Father, T'Chaka," cried Princess Suri and the queen. Seeing his father kneeling in front of him with guilt and remorse on his face, he was so entangled that he opened his mouth without saying anything. "I am guilty." T'Chaka looked up at Eric Kermungo and said in a low voice. From Eric's face, he seemed to see the shadow of his younger brother Nijab. This was his relative, his nephew, but after he killed his father by mistake, he chose to escape because of cowardice, because he didn't dare to face it. He left their mother and son out for more than 20 years, guilty. Looking at the two people kneeling in front of him, Eric Kermungo tightened the long knife in his hand. As soon as T'Chara's eyes tightened, he held on to his body and tried to save his father. Eric threw the long knife in his hand into the water and raised his head and said loudly, "You made unforgivable mistakes. Now that you have both pleaded guilty, I will hand you over to the Presbyterian Council, which will judge your crimes and give you a just judgment. Atone for your original crime." Eric Kermungo's words just came to an end, and all the people present were shocked. Chapter 167. They never thought that their king, who looked fierce and incomparable, would let the two of them go. In the situation just now, the two people clearly confessed their guilt and were willing to die. Everyone thought that he would kill them and avenge his father. Unexpectedly, he planned to hand them over to the Presbyterian Council for trial. Looking at Eric Kermungo's tall and strong figure and strong and resolute face, all the people present could not help but admire his broad mind and fair treatment. Maybe this is their real king, a qualified black leopard. Over the years, Eric Kermungo has killed countless people and even had the nickname of a murderer. But in fact, he never hurt a civilian. All the soldiers or murderous terrorists and criminals who died in his hands, including those who were ordered to be undercover, stole and robbed Zhenjin weapons together with Ulysses Crow. And he also stopped Ulysses Crow and his men from killing people casually in the name of not causing the whole country to encircle them. No one can doubt that he is a pacifist in the name of murderer and ferocity in dealing with the enemy. As a loyal warrior of Hydra, Eric Kermungo naturally agrees with the purpose of Hydra. Hydra are the guardians of the earth. They do not need to rule the whole earth, because they are already in control of the situation of the earth in the dark. What they need to do is to monitor the development of all forces on the earth, eliminate the existence of threats to the earth's security, protect the earth's security, and deal with threats from other planets. So Eric Kermungo, who grew up with Hydra, is not as cruel and murderous as in the movie, although he still inherits the ideals of his father, Nai-Ko-B, and wants to help hundreds of millions of black people on the earth get rid of poverty and backwardness. But Eric was not as radical as Naichab. He tried to overthrow governments by force and let black people rule the world. As a member of the Hydra, his vision has not been so narrow. In his eyes, All the human beings on the earth are his compatriots and need him to protect them. But relatively speaking, those black people who live in poverty need his help more than just the black people. There are 2 billion people living in poverty in the world, and they all need his help. Now Chenmo has given him such a chance. Return to his hometown, Wakanda, and become the king of Wakanda. Then he can help those who need help according to his ideas with the help of Wakanda. When his father was killed, he also got a detailed understanding from Chenmo's mouth. As a god they believed in, Chenmo was omniscient and omnipotent. Naturally, he had no doubt about what Chenmo said. He also had his own understanding of his father Nejab, King T'Chaka, and High Priest Zuli. They all have their own ideals and rules of conduct and strive for their own goals. Unfortunately, their goals are contradictory, and this contradiction finally makes them stand on the opposite side. And their own weakness, cowardice, and extreme make this contradiction further intensified and finally cause the final tragic outcome. His father's original starting point was good. It was to save the black people living in the fire and water. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong way. Because of his bigotry and radicalism, in order to achieve his idea, he betrayed his motherland and sent Ulysses Crow to Wakanda, bringing huge damage and casualties to Wakanda. This was his father's fault. He guilty. As the king, Zuli sent spies to supervise Nishab, but he only reported his findings truthfully. Although he betrayed and trusted his eldest brother Nishab, he was not wrong in the sense of national justice. T'Chaka, who killed his father's murderer himself, left both his mother and his son behind and left them to die in the slums of other countries. To be honest, Eric hated him in his heart, but according to Chenmo at that time, he was going to take Nejab, who betrayed his people, back to Wakanda for the Presbyterian trial and give him a just judgment. Only his father, Nishab, hated Zuli's betrayal and raised his gun to kill him. In order to save Zuli, T'Chaka killed him by mistake. As for the regret that he left them alone and killed his brother himself, he had no courage to face them, so he chose to escape. He is wrong in this matter, but the crime is not fatal. If it is Eric Kermungo in the movie, he will not be responsible for who is right or wrong. All he wants is revenge. But at this time, Eric Kermungo is different from that in the movie. Although it seems to the outside world that he is climbing out of the slum step by step, he must have suffered a lot, and he must have hated the people like T'Chaka. But in fact, after his father died, he was recruited by Hydra and cultivated with heart. His mother was well settled down, so his life after his father's death for more than 20 years was not too painful for him. His hatred for T'Chaka was only because he killed his father. With the cultivation of Hydra, the subtle influence and brainwashing over the past 20 years, Eric Kermungo's mind is not as distorted as in the movie. He is not as bloodthirsty and cruel as he looks. On the contrary, he has his own calm and wise views on many things. Although T'Chaka killed his father, his new values and beliefs made him unable to really kill him to avenge his father. Just as the Black Leopard let go of Baron Zemo, who killed his father in the movie, he did not want to let the hatred continue. He believes in fairness and justice, and he himself is a member of the Earth's justice. Therefore, he will take the throne of King T'Chaka and give him a fair trial. Just as he wanted to give his father Prince Nejab in those days, the Presbyterian Church will give him a fair judgment according to the tradition and rules of Wakanda. No matter what the result is, he will accept it completely, let go of this hatred. This is the change caused by the cultivation of Hydra in his body for more than 20 years. Eric is still Eric, but his mind and thoughts are totally different. Paranoia, radicalism, cruelty, and killing all don't appear in him. On the contrary, Hydra shaped him to be calm, wise, meticulous, and fraternal. He is more suitable to be the king of Wakanda than T'Chaka, and will certainly lead Wakanda out of the negative world, stand on the world stage with the posture of a powerful country and show their strong power to the world. Use their power to benefit the whole world and realize the real rise of Wakanda. Announcing the way to deal with T'Chaka and Zully, Eric Kermungo turned and looked down at the weak, half-kneeling, complex-looking T'Chara and asked in a deep voice. Chapter 168. Do you admit defeat? According to the rules of the Pool Throne Challenge handed down since ancient times, the challenge will be over only when one side dies or concedes defeat. If T'Chara refuses to concede defeat, Eric Kermango can only kill him. Eric has given him the chance to admit defeat. If he refuses, even if Eric kills him, no one else will think Eric cruel. He had let T'Chaka and Zully go before and handed them over to the Presbyterian Church for trial. It has proved that he not only has a strong and incomparable strength, but also has an honest and wise heart under the fierce and violent appearance. He is a king who is generous and fraternal, and rewards and punishes severely. Seeing that Takara was obviously not Eric Kermango's opponent, the Queen and Princess Suri both shouted to Takara in a hurry. T'Chara, give up. The former King Tekaka and the High Priest Zully also looked up at Tekala with heavy and concerned eyes. Give up T'Chara. He's more qualified than I am to be the guardian of Wakanda. We should pay the price for what we have done wrong. The Presbyterian Council will give us a fair trial. Let's make atonement for our mistakes, Tekara. The eyes of Tekala swept through the faces of the crowd one by one, and the will to fight gradually disintegrated. Finally, the strong body couldn't support it and fell forward. It was all supported by the strength of both hands, so it didn't fall into the pool. Under the eyes of all the people, he raised his head and watched Eric Kermango standing proudly in front of him with a solemn and dignified look. In the end, he lowered his head. I give up. Until this time, the people watching the battle at the edge of the pool and on the cliff were relieved. They really didn't want to see the end of the two brothers' fratricity. Help me get him to the lab. Seeing that the duel is finally over, the anxious Princess Su Rui rushes into the pool and shouts at the same time. But her orders were not answered. Armed with steel spears, the vigorous women's royal guard, the women soldiers of Dora's guard still stood upright at the bottom of the cliff as before, and did not come forward to help, but from their eyes, they could see the concern for her. But the most elite female warriors from all tribes, when they joined Dora's guard, made a vow of allegiance to the King of Wakanda. Now, the King of Wakanda is Eric Kermango. Without his order, they can't act without permission, even if they want to help. Fortunately, Eric Kermango didn't mean to embarrass T'Chaka and Suri. Seeing that Dora's guard didn't immediately respond to Princess Suri's order, he gave the captain of the royal guard a look and nodded slightly. The equally anxious OAKER ordered two female soldiers to come forward to help. These things happened very quickly. When Princess Suri ran to her side, two female soldiers arrived almost at the same time. Princess Suri, who was all focused on her seriously injured body, didn't find anything wrong, hurriedly beckoned the two men to help her together, and prepared to send him to her laboratory for treatment. Princess Suri is a gifted girl who is even smarter than Tony Stark. Although she is young, she is in charge of the most important science and technology department of Wakanda. A large part of Wakanda's strong science and technology strength is her credit, and her laboratory also contains the most top science and technology strength of Wakanda. In the battle just now, T'Chara was hit continuously by the huge power of Eric Kermango. The injury was not light. Many parts of her bones were broken, and her internal organs were damaged to varying degrees. Although there was no life danger for the time being under the strong constitution of the panther strengthened by heart-shaped herbs, it was hard to say if she dragged on. Two female soldiers of the guard picked up the nearly incapacitated Tekara, followed the worried Princess Su Rui, and walked towards an opening under the mountain wall. They were ready to leave the pool and go to Princess Su Rui's laboratory. Just as they were approaching the edge of the pool and walking towards the entrance of the cave, there was a deep and loud roar with a special rhythm suddenly coming from the cave, and they were getting closer and closer. Some people can't help but stop, look or doubt, or look at the deep hole, accompanied by a low roar. It seems that there are some powerful creatures slowly approaching. Eric Kermango in the pool and Chen Mo standing on the side of the mountain wall were also shocked by the sudden strange roar and turned to look at the past. Soon, the creatures in the cave finally came out of the darkness, but a group of more than a dozen soldiers were very tall and strong, just like apes. They were dressed in simple animal skins, with simple wooden spears in their hands, as if they were from primitive tribes in ancient times, wild and fierce. As they slowly walked out of the cave, they uttered a low voice in their mouth. Although they looked very primitive, their tall and majestic bodies and the wild and forceful force they exuded were not to be underestimated. When all the people came out of the cave, the leader, a strong soldier with a ferocious chimpanzee mask, the biggest figure, more than 2 meters tall, took off the mask on his head and showed a rough face, full of fierce spirit. "M'Baku, how did you get here?" An elder recognized the tall man when he saw his face. It turns out that this is the Jabari tribe, which has been isolated from the 5 major tribes of Wakanda and never participated in kingdom affairs. The big man wearing mask is the leader of Jabari tribe, M'Baku. They have been living in the mountains, refusing to accept the change of life caused by the progress of science and technology. For many years, they have been in the most primitive state, fighting and hunting like the primitive people. They are also the most powerful fighters in the 5 tribes. Each adult male of the Jabari tribe is nearly 2 meters tall, with a very strong body and superior strength. People are the best fighters. In the hall of the royal palace, a group of elders regarded Eric Kermango, who was more than 2 meters tall and extremely strong, as the exile of the Jabari tribe. After all, his tall and strong body was very similar to them. Looking at these suddenly appeared, one by one is bigger and stronger than the Stone Johnson. Chen Mo, standing under the cliff, could not help but flash a ray of interest in his eyes. After he conceded, Eric Kermango waved her and Zuli to get up and back to one side, and she stood up supported by 2 female soldiers. Chapter 169. Therefore, M'Baku and others just came out of the cave did not see the scene of the former king, high priest and prince of the kingdom of Wakanda kneeling at the same time. They did not know a series of things happened before, and they did not know the strength of Eric Kermango. M'Baku's fierce eyes slowly swept over the people standing by the pool. "We saw it on the mountain and heard it. Let's watch you. Let's have a child monitor the progress of science and technology." The huge and heavy stick in his hand was pointed at Princess Suri, who had never seen this kind of Suri in the market. He was so scared that he could not move. His face was very flustered. Fortunately, 2 women soldiers of the royal guard who were supporting her raised their spears in time to block her, which made her not fall to the ground. The soldiers of the Jabari tribe are all extremely fierce. As their leader, the most powerful soldier in the tribe, M'Baku's momentum is even more extremely fierce and frightening a little girl in Suri. She looked coldly and was shocked. She was scared to be a little black and white-faced Princess Suri. M'Baku ignored the 2 royal guard women soldiers holding spears to him and turned to look at the elders standing under the cliff. "Now, you have to give this country to an outsider. He's never even been to Wakanda before. You have destroyed all the precious traditions of Wakanda," said M'Baku, looking at Eric Kermango, who was still standing in the middle of the pool. "Now that you have made him a new king, I'd like to see if he has the qualification." When I strode to Eric, M'Baku wanted to look down habitually, but found that Eric was even higher than him. If the soldiers of the Jabari tribe were all big rocks, M'Baku's body size could be comparable to Shaquille O'Neal, and even stronger. So Mubaku has been used to looking down on everyone today. However, he met Eric Kermungo, a bigger and stronger fighter than him. Eric Kermungo was nearly 2 meters tall. After the transformation of the enhanced super soldier serum, he reached an amazing 2 meters 3. Everyone can only look up when standing beside him, including M'Baku, who is already in an amazing shape, and he should also be short for half a head. In addition, his high and strong muscles all show his strong strength. This made the Jabari people, including M'Baku, who were still in the primitive state and worshipped power, less dissatisfied with Eric Kermango, the new king who suddenly appeared. Before, he seemed to meet their requirements for the king with a strong power, but the power is not only based on the size of the body but also how to fight. Looking up slightly, M'Baku stares at Eric Kermango, who is half his head higher than him. His eyes are full of fighting. Me, M'Baku, the leader of the Jabari tribe, challenge you. As the strongest warrior of Jabari tribe, M'Baku has not met a decent opponent for a long time. He has always been eager to have a powerful opponent who is equal to him, so that he can fully play the powerful force contained in his body and fight with all his strength, even if he is defeated. Empty has a powerful power but cannot give full play to it, which makes him feel extremely suffocating and uncomfortable. At the moment, Eric Kermango, who stands proudly in front of him, has an unprecedented strong desire to fight. The amazing momentum emanating from his strong body like a steel giant makes his blood boil. This is the real strong fighter. This is the opponent he has been longing for. Looking at M'Baku's fiery eyes, Eric Kermango flashed a strange look in his eyes and nodded softly. M'Baku, I accept your challenge. Seeing that a war is about to start again, Princess Suri is not interested in these things. She is in a hurry to send Takara to her laboratory for treatment. His injury is not light, and there may be a problem after a long delay, but the soldiers of the Jabari tribe hold spears firmly in front of them and don't let them leave. However, according to tradition, they should witness the challenge of tribal members to the king on the spot. Just when the little black face of Suri's anger turned purple, Eric Kermango waved to the 2 female soldiers who supported Tarala and let them back to one side. Although Suri wanted to oppose, it was of no avail at all, so she could only follow her back to the cliff with great vigor. She is only waiting for them to finish the fight. It's better to lose both of them and get seriously injured. I won't help them. Let them wait a little longer. In fact, M'Baku had seen the 2 women soldiers holding him. It seemed that he had failed in the previous duel with the new king Eric Kermango and was seriously injured. He knows more or less about the strength of Takara. Without heart-shaped herbal medicine strengthening, he is still weaker than him, but the gap is not too big. If he plays well, he is likely to be defeated. Originally, Takara should be a good opponent, but because he took heart-shaped herbs and gained the power given by the Panther God, his strength increased dramatically. Though M'Baku was strong, he was an ordinary person after all. He was not a Black Panther's opponent without strengthening. The rule of the pool challenge is very clear to M'Baku. The Black Leopard must remove the strengthening of heart-shaped herbs and return the powerful power given by the Leopard God before accepting the challenge. Therefore, at this time, the Tekala should only have the strength before strengthening. That is, it is slightly weaker than him, and Eric Kermango can defeat him and seriously hurt him. Obviously, the strength is not less than that of the Tekala. M'Baku is looking forward to his strength. Eric Kermango looked at Zuli, the high priest, and he quickly took the spear he had thrown away from the water and went to the 2 men. After confirming that they were ready, he raised the spear to the ground and shouted loudly, "Challenge start!" Bang! As soon as Zuli's voice came down, M'Baku rushed up with a weapon in his hand. The weapon in his hand looks very simple and crude. It is made of a whole hard tree like a large spear. One end is cut into a sharp spear head, and the other end is a heavy round hammer the size of a child's head, which can be stabbed and smashed. With the great power of M'Baku, it can smash human skull into powder broken. At this time, M'Baku, who came to Eric Kermungo, waved his weapon directly and hit Eric with a round hammer. In the face of such a heavy weapon attack, there is no other way but to avoid it. Even the black leopard strengthened by heart-shaped herbs dare not connect the hammer head-on. If the powerful hammer hits his head, it will definitely lose its fighting power in a short time, even if it is not directly exploded. But Eric did not move the hammer. Seeing that the heavy blow was about to hit his head, all the people watching the battle could not help but sweat for their new king. If this hammer is smashed, it will directly blow the head, and the whole head will be smashed directly. Princess Su Rui covers her eyes in fear of seeing the horrible scene of brain splashing. If her spine is broken, she can still be saved. If her head is exploded, she can't be saved. The hammer had fallen on Eric Kermungo's head, less than half a meter away. At this time, even if it was a little late to avoid, there was a sense of disappointment in M'Baku's eyes. He thought he was a strong man, but he was so vulnerable. Just when everyone thought that he was about to be shot in the head and died miserably on the spot, a thick arm suddenly reached under the heavy hammer, and the palm of the Pooh fan grasped the hammer and firmly fixed it there. It was enough to smash the rock with a heavy blow, so he took it lightly, and all the people couldn't help but stare big eyes and face unbelievable okay. How powerful is he? Is his hand made of steel? Without waiting for the equally shocked M'Baku to respond, Eric Kermungo grabbed the hammer's left hand and pulled it backwards, snatching the spear from M'Baku's hand and throwing it aside. Then Eric Kermungo strode forward, grabbed M'Baku by the neck, lifted his arm up and raised him directly, leaving his feet off the ground. M'Baku reacted and struggled, but the big hand holding his neck was like a pair of pliers, firmly holding him, and the thick arm was like steel pouring. No matter how hard he struggled and resisted, he could not shake the whole thing. Do you admit defeat? I thought it would be a fierce battle, but it ended in a few seconds. The fierce, white ape, M'Baku, was killed by Eric Kermungo. The people watching the battle on and off the cliff didn't react. They thought that Eric Kermungo would be smashed to the head by M'Baku's hammer just now. They didn't expect that the situation would reverse in an instant at the next moment, which was beyond the acceptance of the people. But the next moment, everyone's eyes on Eric Kermungo went wild. In front of their great king Eric Kermungo, the powerful M'Baku was as weak as a newborn baby. He could easily take a heavy blow that could kill any fighter in a second, and directly captured M'Baku. Just as he had easily defeated the black leopard before, the power of their king was so powerful. Eric didn't notice the fanatical reverence in the eyes of the people. Seeing that M'Baku was still struggling, he didn't mean to give up. Eric's eyes flashed cold, holding him straight to the edge of the pool. Beyond the pool is the cliff. Walking to the edge of the cliff, Eric Kermungo slowly extended his right arm holding M'Baku. Chapter 170. At the foot of M'Baku's suspension is the cliff. As soon as Eric let go, he will fall directly, let alone his white ape. Even if he is a monkey, he will only fall into meat and mud. However, M'Baku's eyes are still not afraid. The real soldiers are never afraid of death. However, it is clear that Eric Kermungo did not intend to kill him in this way. He took a look at the solemn face of the Jabari tribal warrior beside the pool, and Eric turned his head to look into the eyes of M'Baku. Give up, your people need you. M'Baku, who had a firm face, looked at the people on one side. The Jabari tribe does not have a qualified leader besides him now. His people need him to lead them alive. Thinking of this, M'Baku's expression couldn't help but relax. Looking at Eric Kermungo, who defeated him by one move, M'Baku gave up the struggle and squeezed a few words out of his throat. I give up. Easily defeated the last challenger, the leader of the Jabari tribe, M'Baku. After the challenge ceremony, Eric Kermungo officially became king of the kingdom of Wakanda. But the ceremony did not come to an end. In Wakanda, the first thing after the king officially ascended the throne was to receive the blessing of Leopard God. He will take heart-shaped herbs to strengthen his body, and at the same time, his consciousness will return to the ancestral land and accept the teachings of his dead ancestors. In the pit of Zhenjin Gold Mine, there is a cave with heart-shaped herbs. The strengthening ceremony is held here. There was no difference between the whole process and Chenmo's memory. Eric Kermango, who was lying in the mud pit, took the juice of heart-shaped herbal medicine grinding and was buried by the priests with less and made a grave. A few minutes later, the buried Eric came out of his grave like a corpse, gasping for breath. As a Chinese, Chenmo is deeply uncomfortable with their strange custom. He doesn't think that the strengthening of heart-shaped herbs must bury people. This is the custom they left behind from the primitive society. It is likely that the first black leopard in history took heart-shaped herbal medicine after being seriously injured, but it was buried as death. When he was cured by the power of heart-shaped herbal medicine and came out after being strengthened and broken, he was thought to be blessed by the gods and kept the whole process as a traditional ritual. He had to bury people and break the earth again, no way out. Although Wakanda's science and technology are very developed, it is only science and technology. Their politics, economy, military system, ideology, and other aspects are still very backward, which can be seen from their royal challenge ceremony. Which system is mature, stable, and deep-rooted country will use duels to decide the succession of the throne. It's just a joke. However, it's not surprising that Wakanda was just a primitive and backward tribal alliance similar to other African countries decades ago, and the precious Zhenjin was just used as a hard metal to forge cold weapons. With the development of the world, Wakanda has gradually had exchanges with the outside world, and found the vast outside world and the powerful power of science and technology. When a small amount of gold was accidentally found flowing out of Wakanda and regarded as a treasure by people outside, they realized the great value of gold. After that, they began to sell a small amount of Zhenjin to the outside world and sent the intelligent young people of the tribe to study advanced scientific knowledge and high-end technology with the huge wealth they earned. After returning home, they took advantage of Zhenjin to develop science and technology, which developed from a primitive department to a higher level than other countries, even in some ways comparable to Hydra technology country. Although the science and technology are developed, the background of Wakanda is not enough. Many other aspects have not kept up with the rapid progress of science and technology, and the development is somewhat abnormal. But it's also good. Because of this, Eric Kermango can become the king of Wakanda so easily and control the whole country at one stroke. It's impossible to change any other country with some background. In any case, Chenmo has finally completed his plan to make Eric Kermango the king of Wakanda. As a loyal warrior of Hydra, his devout believer, Eric has mastered Wakanda and become the king, which is equivalent to Chenmo becoming the supreme emperor. Many things are easy to handle. After taking the heart-shaped herbs, Eric Kermango had already achieved 5 times the physical fitness of ordinary people under the transformation of the enhanced super soldier serum, which was 7 times that of ordinary people, basically equivalent to Chenmo's current physical fitness. Of course, it's just about physical fitness. Chenmo's fighting experience and skills are far above Eric Kermango. Although his physical fitness is similar, his comprehensive strength will completely crush him. Eric Kermango is a battle maniac when he is a SEAL commando or a mercenary. He is experienced in all kinds of battles and has thousands of lives. He is absolutely the top fighter on the earth. He has strong combat experience and skills, but compared with Chenmo, the god who fought around in the world of night legends, killed countless people, conquered the whole Europe and destroyed the werewolf, he is still too immature. Chen Mo's fighting skills integrate all kinds of exquisite martial arts. In the battle, he has eliminated the turnips and kept improving. He has become very strong, which Eric Kermango can't catch up with in a short time. After all, he didn't have Chen Mo's strong mental power and highly developed brain, and the powerful and incomparable learning ability that came with it. After the transformation of intensified super soldier serum, Eric's brain has also been developed to a certain extent, and his intelligence, memory, and other aspects have been strengthened, but compared with Chen Mo, it is still much worse. As for swordsmanship, there is no comparison. Chen Mo's swordsmanship is based on the Holy Cross swordsmanship evolved and founded in the wars of the Middle Ages. It integrates the extraordinary swordsmanship tempered by Alexander Corvinus, the ancestor of the immortal race, in the continuous battles with the powerful werewolves for hundreds of years. It has reached the peak of perfection. Its moves are exquisite and powerful. It's Chen Mo himself, and it's hard to improve it. If it's a close, unarmed fight, Eric Kermango can still make several moves in Chen Mo's hands. Once Chen Mo pulls out the sword of the king, he can be killed in one move to end the fight. Strengthened Eric Kermango stood up, only to see Chen Mo wink at him. "All of you." "Yes, your majesty." After taking the heart-shaped herbal medicine and strengthening it successfully, Eric Kermango stood up from the mound after a smooth breath. Chapter 171. Without waiting for him to feel the changes of his body, Chen Mo's deep eyes let him put down the idea of exploring for a while, and drove away all the people in the cave directly. Although this is the holy land of Wakanda, where there are heart-shaped herbs with magical effects, usually they are heavily guarded, and outsiders are not allowed to enter at all. But no one dares to object to the king's order. Wakanda is not a constitutional monarchy country. Although its system is primitive and backward, at the same time, it also maintains a high degree of centralization. The king's rights are supreme. No one in Wakanda can disobey Rick Kermango's orders. After all the priests had retreated, there were only Chen Mo and Eric left in the cave. Without outsiders, Chen Mo is no longer afraid. He goes directly to the medicine field where heart-shaped herbs are planted. He stoops to pick a ping-pong fruit the size of a purple shimmer from a heart-shaped flower. Prior to the initiation of the strengthening ceremony, Chen Mo had consulted Wakanda's research and records on heart-shaped herbs. The heart-shaped herbal medicine was born with the Zhenjin vein. 10 million years ago, a giant meteorite composed of Zhenjin fell into the territory of Wakanda. Under the special energy radiation of a large number of Zhenjin, some plants changed, and finally the heart-shaped herbal medicine was born. This magical plant can not only cure injuries and strengthen physical quality, but also let people enter the spiritual world. It's amazing to meet the dead ancestors. This heart-shaped herb is rare in quantity and demanding in environment. The whole Wakanda only grows in the cave above the Zhenjin meteorite. Wakanda people have tried to transplant heart-shaped herbs to other places, but all of them ended in failure. Even other places around the meteorite could only survive, but could not continue to grow and bear fruit. Obviously, heart-shaped herbal medicine not only changes under the radiation of gold vibrating energy, but also its growth cannot be separated from the special energy radiated by gold vibrating. Only in this special position, the cave with the strongest radiation and the highest energy concentration can meet their energy requirements, survive and grow normally, and produce fruits with magical effects. Chen Mo, who got heart-shaped herbal medicine, didn't immediately take it to strengthen it. Instead, he picked a few more fruits and directly waved them into the space. According to the plot of the movie and the performance of Eric Kermango during the strengthening, it is obvious that the strengthening of heart-shaped herbs will lead to coma and complete loss of resistance. Cautious Chen Mo is not going to strengthen it here, but he is going to return to the absolutely safe place to take it again. Seeing several heart-shaped herbs in Chen Mo's hands disappear from the sky, Eric Kermango was not too surprised when he secretly lamented Chen Mo's magical ability. Chen Mo is a divine being in his mind. Some magical special abilities are normal. Seeing Chen Mo put away the heart-shaped herbal medicine, he stood up. To him, Eric Kermungo hurriedly stepped forward 2 steps, stood in front of Chen Mo and stood in awe. He looked down at Chen Mo and asked, "My God, what should I do next?" Before setting out, Chen Mo only explained how he was going to take the throne of Wakanda and didn't tell him the plan after taking the throne. Now that he has become the king of Wakanda and has been strengthened by heart-shaped herbs, he has become a new panther, but he is a little confused about what to do next. Looking at Eric Kermungo's respectful questioning eyes, he asked slowly after thinking, "What do you want?" "Me." Eric Kermango, who wanted to ask Chen for the next action order, couldn't respond to Chen's question for a while. Although he has become the king of Wakanda, his mentality has not changed. He is a Hydra warrior, a faithful believer of God, and God's will is above all else. Although he was puzzled, Chen Mo must have his reason since he asked, so Eric Kermango thought about it carefully. What does he want? Since his father's death, he has been recruited by Hydra in secret. He grew up in the slums, joined the SEAL Commando to fight in Afghanistan, and became a mercenary to take risks all over the world. Before his eyes, he saw a lot of things. The poor living in the slums were hard, the civilians suffering from Afghanistan war, and the refugees surrounded by famine and war in Africa. At last, the purpose of Hydra came to him clearly. Looking at Chen Mo, Eric replied earnestly, "I want to save the poor and needy people from war, hunger, and poverty and live a stable life." Looking at Eric Kermango, who is full of compassion, Chen Mo can't connect him with the brutal warfighter in the movie. Hydra has completely changed him, but obviously it's much better for him than before. He succeeded in becoming the king of Wakanda and was loved by his people, even more than T'Chaka, who had been in power for more than 30 years. Now he also has the ability to act according to his own ideas, step by step to realize his great ideal. "What do you want to do?" Chen Mo then asked. This time Eric Kermungo thought for a long time before answering. "The warlords who hold the army are the root of the war and chaos. If we want to achieve world peace, we must eliminate them all," said Eric Kermungo, with a fierce look in his eyes. "I intend to take advantage of Wakanda's strong military strength to wipe out hundreds of warlords in Africa, large and small, and eliminate the root cause of the war. Then I will work with warlords in Asia and South America to wipe them out. Peace to the world." Eric Kermungo said, more and more excited. Eyes also gradually exude a fanatical light. Seeing this, Chen Mo silently takes back his judgment just now. He can't help but wonder if the infallible brainwashing method of Hydra in Eddie's mouth has failed. It's clearly the radical and fanatical warfighter in the movie. Chen Mo's fingers moved slightly, and he thought about whether to take out the king's sword, and then he would be killed with one sword, so as not to take out the control of Hydra and endanger the safety of the world. Wakanda's technological power is very powerful, almost comparable to Hydra. Once it is mastered by fanatical fighters, it will bring great damage to the world. Just as Chen Mo's eyes began to show a little coldness, Eric Kermungo went on without realizing it. Chapter 172. With the elimination of all warlords in the world, we will be able to save the innocent civilians who are suffering from the war, so that they will no longer be threatened by the war. At the same time, we will provide them with life assistance, help them rebuild their homes and live a stable and happy life," Eric Kermungo said, with a look of yearning on his face. It seems that this is his greatest pursuit and goal in life. Eliminate war and poverty, so that all people on Earth can live a stable life. It seems that the brainwashing of Hydra hasn't failed. After all, What Eric Kermungo has accepted is not the kind of forced brainwashing that roughly erases memory, instills new things and directly changes one's consciousness, but the influence and cultivation that has been imperceptibly influenced for more than 20 years. In fact, it should not be called brainwashing, because they did not wash his original consciousness, but instilled and implanted new ideas and concepts in his young and simple thoughts, which were in line with the concept of Hydra, and molded him into the shape they wanted. It's just that Eric Kermungo didn't start as a child, not as a pure white paper. When he was recruited by Hydra, he was already in his teens. Although he was still young, his thoughts were relatively simple, unshaped, and plastic. He had some ideas and ideas of his own, especially in his father, Prince Nichob's words and deeds, or by some of his ideas. In fact, this has been reflected before. Eric Kermungo has always been cruel to the enemy in the battle, no matter in the special forces or after he became a mercenary. Although the Hydra's teaching made him pity the weak and never hurt a civilian, he never felt soft to the enemy and killed the number of enemies in his hands in thousands of ways. This is also the reason why he can obtain the nickname of murderer. His murderous nature is so great that all people who have heard his name can't help being scared. In front of the God he believed in, Eric Kermungo did not hide in the slightest. His cruelty to warlords and his compassion for civilians were all clearly written on his face. Looking at his face without a trace of hypocrisy, Chenmo can't help but smile. Two completely opposite attitudes appear on him, but they are not contradictory. They are cruel to the bad guys and merciful to the weak. Isn't that the warrior that Hydra needs? In fact, Chenmo doesn't know how many of his enemies he killed, including soldiers, rebellious Hydra regiment, ferocious werewolves, and hostile knights. In the years of the Night Legend world alone, tens of thousands of werewolves died in his hands, not to mention the countless battles he went through in the course of conquering the whole European continent. In the fight, countless soldiers died under his sword. But he saved more people, completely eliminated the wolf disaster, ended the chaos and darkness in the Middle Ages, unified Europe, benefited the people of the whole European continent, and left them a unified and powerful empire, and a stable and rich life. So the people of the whole empire will respect him so much, even though he has left for hundreds of years, his faith still hasn't changed at all. If we want to change the current situation quickly, we have to make big moves and carry out conservative reforms little by little. Obviously, it will take a lot of time, which means that more civilians will die in the war, and it may not have the expected effect. Eric Kermungo's idea is a good way to cut through the mess and cut the salary directly. However, it is clear that his consideration is not comprehensive enough. Can he solve the problem only by eliminating all warlords and providing assistance? His idea is too simple and rough to be comprehensive. After all, for more than 20 years, Eric Kermungo has been fighting in the battlefield for most of the time. He has just become the king of Wakanda. Although his education and intelligence are not low, his vision in this aspect involving the whole earth is still limited. Chenmo is different, not to mention that he personally unifies the whole European continent in the world of Night Legends and becomes the god of that huge empire. In this world, Chenmo also controls huge power and power. The Hydra and the Shield are under his control. Both of them are super forces that can affect the world's situation and shake the powerful existence of the whole earth. Do you think if these warlords are killed, the people of Africa will be completely liberated? Here. Eric Kermungo was at a loss for a moment. He didn't know that even if he killed all the warlords, it would only be a solution to the problem and not to the root cause. The people at the bottom would not be threatened by war. With his help, they could live a stable life for some time, but sooner or later there would be another warlord. In order to fight for interests and land, the war would fall again on the land of Africa. Everything is back to its original state. But what can he do? There seems to be no better way to prevent these warlords from becoming bigger than to assassinate them. But then Eric Kermungo's eyes lit up. Now that Chen Mo asked, there must be a better way. Thinking of this, Eric quickly knelt down in front of Chen Mo on one knee. Even if he knelt on the ground, he was only a little shorter than the tall Chen Mo. He raised his head. Eric Kermango looked up at Chen Mo's face and said in a pious tone and full of expectation, "My God, Eric, listen to you." He always wanted to eliminate the war and save the poor people. He knew that it was very difficult, even if he was the king of Wakanda now. So at this moment, his heart was looking forward to their omnipotent God to help him fulfill his wish. Since we have to do it thoroughly, there is only one way to solve Africa's problems once and for all. Unite Africa. What? Eric Kermungo almost didn't stare out when he heard the words. If it wasn't for Chen Mo, he would have thought that this man was crazy and wanted to unify Africa. It is not tens of hundreds of years ago, let alone the dozens of countries that unite the whole of Africa. Even if it is a large-scale war between two countries, it will attract the eyes of the whole world, attract the intervention of many big countries, and even send troops directly to fight. In fact, this is the limitation of Eric Kermungo's vision. Chapter 173. Growing up under the cultivation of Hydra, he is no longer as unscrupulous and reckless as in the movie. Now he has more identification with the world, a new life goal and faith. At the same time, he has more responsibilities and concerns. Although there are wars in some parts of the world today, the overall pattern is very stable. The major powers firmly control the world order and control the situation of the whole world. At present, the chaos is only the internal turmoil and power struggle of some small countries, and the fight between the government and the anti-government forces. The most common reason between countries is because of the border friction. The outbreak of small-scale conflicts, involving large-scale wars of national annihilation and territorial annexation, has not happened for decades since the Second World War. Once such a large-scale war which can directly affect the world situation breaks out, it will inevitably involve the forces of the whole world, and many countries in the East and the West will be drawn into it. Once the situation is further expanded, it will be another world war is possible. It was because of the hidden scruples in his heart that Eric Kermango had not considered unifying Africa at all, and he dared not think about it. How many people died in the first two world wars? If the Third World War really broke out, with the great power of all kinds of advanced weapons and the popularization of all kinds of weapons of mass destruction, only more people would die in the war. Although Wakanda has a huge leading edge in science and technology, it doesn't mean that other countries don't have the ability to fight back at all. At that time, the powerful nine-headed snake was finally wiped out by the Allies. Not to mention the terror of nuclear weapons, just the huge number of strategic missiles of all kinds possessed by the major military powers with amazing power is enough to pose a threat to Wakanda. With the number of strategic missiles owned by the major military powers in the world today, we don't even need to work together. As long as one of them does, the overwhelming number of heavy strategic missiles will be enough to raze Wakanda to the ground, not to mention that they have more and powerful tactical missiles. It can be said that the major powers don't even need to work together. Soldiers, just by means of missile bombing, are enough to completely disintegrate the power of Wakanda, which is the essence of a great country. Although their fighters, armored forces, and individual combat capabilities are not as good as those of Wakanda, they are not completely suppressed, and their forces are extremely large. The number of soldiers and all kinds of weapons and equipment are far more than those of Wakanda, much more than them. Even in a war of attrition, hard grinding can kill them. After all, Wakanda is just a small country with leading technology. The whole country's bottom line is still a huge gap compared with the old big countries such as China, the United States, and Russia. In local small-scale special operations, Wakanda can take absolute advantage of advanced technology. Once a comprehensive war breaks out, when it comes to the comprehensive national strength, Wakanda will undoubtedly lose. So Eric Kermungo didn't even think about bringing Africa under Wakanda, because it's impossible. Developed countries such as Europe and the United States will never allow a strong and unified Africa to appear on the world stage. They would like Africa to go on forever, so that they can fish in troubled waters and seize the opportunity to gain benefits. African unity is something they absolutely do not want to see. It will not only affect their interests, but also change the pattern of the whole world, and even threatening their position as the world's hegemon. Eric Kermungo's concerns and these obstacles in reality make it clear to Chen Mo that unifying Africa is an impossible thing for all, but Chen Mo has the confidence to realize it. In the shock of Eric Kermungo's face, Chen Mo said quietly and slowly, "Unify Africa, completely eliminate the threat of war, then vigorously develop agriculture and animal husbandry, fundamentally solve the problem of eating, and gradually build the whole Africa into a stable and rich country like Wakanda." At that time, with the vast land and strong national strength of Africa, we can attract black compatriots from all countries who are living in difficulties to return to Africa, participate in the construction of new Africa, and live a happy life they should enjoy. At the same time, Wakanda, who owns Africa as a whole, can better help other poor people in the world who need help. Under the influence of Chen Mo's indifferent tone, Eric Kermungo's shocked mood gradually calmed down. He imagined the situations described by Chen Mo in his mind. Eric couldn't help but wonder, if he could unify Africa, the whole African people would be completely liberated, then his ideal would be realized by more than half. At that time, he would rely on the power of the whole Africa will be able to better help the people of the world, save them from war and poverty, and fully realize his dream. In this way, Eric Kermungo was also excited. Although it seems to him that the reunification of Africa is almost impossible, it is Chen Mo who said this, which is different. For decades, it has been hidden in the dark. It has advanced technology and powerful military power that are no less than that of Wakanda. It has a huge and appalling hidden power. It's a secret organization that can subvert the world. Hydra is just an organization created by God. With the strength of Hydra, it's not impossible to realize Africa if we do our best. What's more, it's only a Hydra. Who knows what kind of power God has in his hands? Thinking of this, Eric Kermungo's eyes on Chen Mo are crazy. In Chen Mo, he sees the hope to achieve this great goal. Chen Mo noticed the change of Eric Kermungo's face, smiled in his heart, and continued in a flat voice. Killing all warlords is only the first step. When he came out of the cave, Eric Kermungo immediately summoned the leaders of the Wakanda tribes and began to assign combat tasks. It's heard that a large-scale military operation is going to be carried out to the outside world, and the goal is all warlords in Africa. Almost everyone thinks their king is crazy and looks at Eric Kermungo, who is sitting on the gorgeous throne, one by one with unbelievable faces. Only Wakabi, the leader of the border tribe, was shocked by Eric Kermungo's plans to carry out military operations and expansion, but his face was full of emotion. As the defense commander and military minister of Wakanda, general in charge of commanding the army of Wakanda, Wakabi has been guarding the border of Wakanda for so many years, preventing outsiders from entering, and maintaining the state of unknown and isolated Wakanda. Chapter 174. But as a soldier, what he really wants is to fight, to conquer, to expand territory. That's what a general should do, not be a doorman all day long, pretending to be a herdsman in a border village. For a long time, he didn't agree with the decision of the hidden world of Tekaka, but he was a pure soldier. Although he didn't agree with the shrinking corner and was eager to fight and conquer, he still strictly carried out the king's order without any discount. Because he is a soldier, obedience to orders is the duty of soldiers. As a general of Wakanda, loyalty to the king is always the first. It's not that no one has questioned Eric Kermungo's amazing plan, but after Eric's arbitrary and direct order, all opposition has disappeared. In Wakanda, the king is the supreme ruler of the country. The king's order is above all else. They can question and put forward their own ideas and suggestions. But once the king gives the order, they must obey unconditionally and carry out it with all their strength. Before the implementation of the plan officially started, the Presbyterian Church announced the judgment on T'Chaka and Zuli. They killed Prince Niqab by mistake and abandoned his wife and children, which should be punished. After a collective trial, the Presbyterian Council decided to remove Zuli from his position as high priest and sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment. Before Tekaka, he had given up his position as king. The Presbyterian Council decided to deprive him of the status of a member of the royal family and demote him to a commoner, and also sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment. However, now that the military operation is about to start in Wakanda, the Presbyterian Council proposes to change the imprisonment of the two into military service. Tekaka and Zuli are the top warriors of Wakanda, especially Tekaka. As the last king and the panther guarding Wakanda, he has taken heart-shaped herbs and is very powerful. Although he was a little older, his strength did not decline too much. Only because he put too much energy on government affairs did he give the responsibility of the king's panther to his son, T'Challa. Moreover, as a cheetah for decades, he has more experience in fighting, and the young and strong one is not necessarily his opponent. Although Zuli has not taken heart-shaped herbs and has not been strengthened in physical quality, he has also reached the limit of ordinary people. Wakanda Intelligence Organization War Dog Spy background, and finally achieved the War Dog leader Zuli, with highly skilled fighting skills and rich combat experience. Although in terms of physical strength, it's inferior to the strong M'Baku like an ape, but it's really hard to say whether he will win or not. If Eric Kermungo had no plans for a foreign war, there would be nothing for them to spend 10 years in Wakanda prison. But now we are about to launch a military operation. It's a pity that two top powerful soldiers are in prison like this. It's better to let them play their abilities on the battlefield and fight for Wakanda. It's a mistake. As for the Presbyterian proposal, Eric Kermungo thought about it and nodded slowly in the people's worried eyes. Yes, they will be used in later actions. When he saw Eric Kermungo's promise, he was relieved from the prison of T'Chaka and Zuli. He was very happy. Although the two need to go to the battlefield and fight at the front line, there may be some danger. Because the Tekaka is no longer a panther, they can no longer wear the panther battle suit made of Genjin. However, with the advanced technology of Wakanda and the defensive power of ordinary battle suits, it is also enough to resist the attack of most conventional weapons. In addition, with the strong combat power of the two men, there is little danger, so he would like to see this new way of dealing with them. He believes that they are more willing to use this way to make up for their mistakes and make atonement for themselves with their own actions. Of course, the Black Panther will join them. However, even if there are two Panthers, a war dog leader's high-end combat power, the operation of the manpower is still some shortage. This large-scale beheading operation aimed at eliminating all warlords in Africa is not competent for ordinary soldiers. All these warlords have a large number of guards to protect their safety. If they want to kill them quietly without disturbing the guards and troops, they must be very elite soldiers. However, the population of the Kingdom of Wakanda is not large, and the total number of border tribe soldiers in charge of guarding the outside of the kingdom is only a few thousand, among which only less than 100 are capable of this arduous task. If we want to complete the complete elimination of African warlords in a short time, we will not have enough manpower at all. Even if we add all the elite soldiers of other ethnic groups who can do this task, and the elite spy agents of War Dog, there are still some deficiencies. However, among the 5 major tribes in the Kingdom of Wakanda, there is still one tribe that is not present and usually does not participate in kingdom affairs. That is, the Jabari tribe, who has been living in isolation and living alone on the mountain. They always adhere to the tradition and refuse to use science and technology. When other ethnic groups enjoy the convenience of modernization and use all kinds of high-tech weapons to help fight with the advanced technology developed by Zhenjin, the ethnic people of the Jabari tribe still maintain the most primitive life. They are far away from the civilized society and live on the high mountains. They live by hunting. Their hard living conditions and harsh environment have tempered their iron will and extremely strong physique. For hundreds of thousands of years, the survival of the fittest has given the people of the Jabari tribe the most powerful body gene. Everyone has an extremely tall and strong body. At the same time, the life of hunting for a living and the belligerent custom also give them rich combat experience and powerful combat ability. Although the border tribes are responsible for guarding Wakanda, in fact, the soldiers of the Jabari tribe are the most powerful among the 5 tribes, if not counting the high-tech weapons. They were the targets of Eric Kermungo, and these powerful and experienced fighters were exactly what he needed. Since he became king, he would not let this powerful power go to waste like the former king. After the pre-war meeting, Eric Kermango and Chen Mo came to the high mountain where the Jabari tribe settled. Before being defeated by Eric Kermungo in the challenge, after giving up, M'Baku took his people back to the mountain and lived in isolation again. Chapter 175. Until the arrival of Chen Mo and Eric Kermango, the peace on the mountain was broken again. Although the Jabari tribe has been separated from the management of the Kingdom of Wakanda, living alone on the mountains, and basically in a state of listening to the propaganda and not listening to the tune. But it's just because they have different ideas about tradition and lifestyle. They still admit that they are a member of Wakanda, recognize the status of the king, and obey his orders. But usually they don't directly participate in government affairs, and the former king, Tekaka, has always left them out of business, and the development of the kingdom really doesn't use them. This group of big, strong, savage, and belligerent ape warriors have no other place to use them except for fighting, while Wakanda, who pursues the policy of seclusion, does not need to fight outside. As long as the stability of the border is maintained and outsiders are prevented from entering Wakanda, and the border tribes can do it. So for decades, the Jabari tribe has been far away from all the affairs of Wakanda, living a unique primitive life, and gradually forgotten by all the ethnic groups. Many young people in the kingdom have only heard of their existence and know that Wakanda has such a special tribe. Even some don't know their existence at all. In fact, although they pursue different lifestyles and concepts, they have never questioned their identity as a member of Wakanda, nor ever thought of breaking away from Wakanda. They worship the strong and yearn for the powerful. The guardian of Wakanda, the Black Leopard, has more powerful power than them, so they are willing to become his people and obey his life order. Before that, M'Baku heard that King Tekaka gave up his throne and gave up his throne to a sudden stranger, which led the people to the waterfall pool where the challenge ceremony was held and challenged Eric Kermungo. In the past, although they didn't agree with some of King Tekaka's decisions, they still chose to acquiesce and didn't jump out against it, because he was the Black Panther and the strongest king of Wakanda. And the new king who came out suddenly did not win the throne by defeating the Panther, but by giving up to him. This is unacceptable to M'Baku. In M'Baku's view, only the most powerful fighters are qualified to be the king of Wakanda, leading them. If Eric Kermango defeated the Black Leopard Tekaka in a fair duel and won the throne by his own stronger strength than the Black Leopard, then M'Baku will not appear. He will continue to stay in the mountains with his people and wait for the king's order at any time. However, Eric Kermango won the challenge through his own strength, proving that he is qualified to be the king of Wakanda, leading the 5 tribes. This time, Eric and Chenmo's arrival surprised M'Baku. It was the first time in decades that the king of Wakanda had come to the Jabari tribe, and Eric Kermango's style was obviously different from that of Tekaka, which also made M'Baku have some guesses. In the Jabari tribal hall on the cliff, M'Baku met the king Eric Kermango and the mysterious Oriental Chenmo. "I don't know what the king is going to do to the Jabari tribe." M'Baku was straightforward and didn't beat around the bush. He directly asked the doubts in his heart. "I need your fighters to fight for me." Eric Kermango spoke directly about the purpose of the trip without turning around. "Fight." There was a flash of excitement in M'Baku's eyes. "I have a plan," said Eric Kermango slowly. When Chenmo and Eric came out of the Jabari tribe, the whole tribe was mobilized. All the elite fighters gathered, took their weapons and went down the mountain to the capital of Wakanda. There, they will work with the elite fighters of the border tribes and other 3 major tribes, and the elite agents of the war dog, to start beheading operations. For the Jabari tribal people who adore power and love fighting, fighting is their favorite thing. Only because of the seclusion strategy of the former king, T'Chaka, they can only live in the deep mountains and take the beasts in the mountains as the objects of fighting, which are used to hone fighting skills and accumulate experience. But what they really want is real fighting. The most powerful hunter is just a hunter, but they are real fighters. Soldiers should fight with the enemy on the battlefield, not with animals in the mountains. Eric Kermango's plan to unify Africa has been fully supported by the entire Jabari tribe, which is the life they want. And the Jabari tribe is also worthy of being the most powerful tribe in Wakanda. The elite fighters sent by them alone are equal to the total number of other 4 tribes and war dogs. Almost every adult of the Jabari tribe is a powerful hunter, enough to complete the arduous task of beheading. This operation is not as simple as killing people. Thousands of warlords, big and small, in Africa must be killed in a short time. The African continent is very vast, and the distance alone has seriously hindered the rapid progress of the operation. Fortunately, Wakanda has a large part of the world's leading scientific and technological level. Wakanda fighters can fly very fast, which can greatly reduce the time spent on the journey. However, as mentioned before, the background of Wakanda is still too poor. The technology level of the aircraft is very advanced, but the number is very small. The whole kingdom only has dozens of aircraft, which is not enough to complete the task. Fortunately, the manufacturing difficulty of the aircraft is not so difficult, and the time it takes is not too long. So after a short period of repair and preparation, the aircraft are all in place. The beheading operation can be officially launched. The commander in charge of the whole operation is neither Wakabi, the chief of defense of Wakanda, nor Eric Kermango himself, but the mysterious Oriental who has been following the king and is obviously highly valued by the king, Chenmo. For this man who has been with Eric Kermango since he appeared, but has never done anything, there are still many people who are not convinced that the Oriental man, like the transparent man, becomes their commander. These include Wakabi, the leader of the border tribe, and M'Baku, the leader of the Jabari tribe. Both of them are pure fighters and believe in the respect of the strong. Although Chen Mo seems to be tall and strong, compared with the ape like M'Baku, his figure is slightly smaller and looks less wild and fierce. They can't accept a weaker person to lead themselves. In the conference hall of the Palace of Wakanda, all the high-rise buildings of Wakanda are basically present. Chapter 176. It includes 5 tribal elders, border tribal leaders, military commander of Wakanda, Wakabi, tribal leader of Jabari, the strongest warrior of Wakanda, M'Baku, the former Black Leopard Tekara, the head of the Ministry of Science and Technology, Princess Suri, the former King Tekaka, and the former Great Priest Zuli. And of course their king, Eric Kermango, and his comrades in arms, the VIPs of Wakanda, Chen Mo. Eric Kermango sat on the throne. Chen Mo sat beside him, even with him, and the rest of the people sat around the throne, while the vigorous female soldiers of the Women's Royal Guard stood behind the king with their golden spears. When Eric Kermango announced that Chen Mo was the commander of the foreign military operation, all the people at the scene looked at each other and were at a loss. Only Princess Suri sat there and rolled her eyes without saying a word. Wakabi and M'Baku are very powerful fighters, and they also lead their own tribes. M'Baku can be said to be the strongest fighter under the Panther, and Wakabi is the defense minister of Wakanda. In any case, the commander of this massive military operation should be one of the two of them without the personal command of King Eric Kermango, rather than having a seemingly weak alien lead them in this military operation involving the future of Wakanda. So they should protest against Eric Kermango. He is a foreigner. Why should he lead our strongest fighters in Wakanda? This operation is very important. Although he helped you to kill Ulysses Crow, you can't be sentimental about it. Both of them are straightforward and they don't hide their opinions. They speak directly in front of Chen Mo. They could not disobey the king's order, but they would not hold back any dissatisfaction. They would not be polite to Chen Mo. All the others nodded and agreed with each other, deeply agreeing with their words. Although Chen Mo and their king together killed the enemy of Wakanda, Ulysses Crow, who was also a good friend of the king and a VIP of Wakanda, they were not hostile to Chen Mo either. But after all, he is an outsider, and they don't know him. It involves important actions related to the future of Wakanda, and they are not willing to let an outsider who doesn't know make decisions. Eric Kermango was shocked at the words, but he was not as furious as the women soldiers of the royal guard behind him because his decision was questioned. On the contrary, he could not help but smile. "It's my fault. I haven't officially introduced it to you." Speaking of this, Eric Kermango got up and came to Chen Mo. After Chen Mo nodded and agreed, he turned to face the crowd and said slowly, "Although Wakanda has been hidden for decades, the information is not blocked. You should know the war hero 70 years ago, commander of special forces, Chen Mo, right? You're talking about the commander who is said to have wiped out the whole Hydra by one man. Didn't he crash into the sea 70 years ago, driving a super bomber that Hydra wanted to use to destroy the world?" All the people below nodded after hearing the words, which was a more familiar name than Hitler. If Hitler launched the Second World War, Commander Chen Mo personally ended it and brought peace to the world. Yes, but that's all in the past. Not long ago, the American found the plane in the Arctic glacier, and the commander was frozen in the plane. Eric Kermango's words made people look like they could not help but move. "You mean?" They all had guesses in their hearts. Looking at Eric, they asked with some uncertainty. "Yes, we also have the technology of freezing dormancy in Wakanda." The commander with strong physical fitness is not dead, but in the low temperature the eyes of the crowd began to change with Eric Kermango's words. "Now he has been thawed and is right in front of you. This one is Commander Chen Mo." In a look of shock, Eric Kermango went on. At that time, as the commander of the Special Forces, he led the Special Forces to complete a large number of arduous tasks and eliminate all Hydra bases and forces. There is no doubt about his command ability. As for personal strength, I believe that everyone has heard of the legend. What I want to say is that his strength is only stronger than the hearsay. If anyone has doubts, you can challenge him and the facts will tell you everything. Eric Kermungo said, glancing down the circle at the crowd. Does anyone else have a problem with him now as commander of the operation? Few people in the world don't know about Commander Chen Mo's deeds. As the commander of the Special Forces, he led the Special Forces to eliminate Hydra. No one would doubt his command ability. It's really the ability that has been honed and tested on the spot. It's definitely more powerful than those who have been calm for several decades and can only talk about military affairs on paper. As for his strength, it's said that the sword splits the tank, killing people as easily and quickly as cutting melons and vegetables, killing the whole 9-headed snake army equipped with advanced armor weapons, which is difficult for them to do now, so it can be seen how strong his strength is. When Wakabi learned that Chen Mo was the legendary commander of the Special Forces, he gave up the plan of fighting for the commander of the action. He knew that he could not compare with Chen Mo in terms of combat effectiveness and command ability. However, Mubaku was not interested in the action command, but when he learned about Chen Mo's real identity and strong strength, the belligerent gene broke out again and immediately challenged Chen Mo. For his challenge, Chen Mo did not refuse, but taught him to be a man very friendly. This time, M'Baku is even worse than the last fight with Eric Kermango at the waterfall. In the face of the fierce attack from the ape-like big and strong M'Baku, Chen Mo did not dodge but directly chose to fight with strength. Mubaku contains a huge power, a heavy fist. It is the same as Chen Mo's fist. The two fists intersect. Mubaku only feels as if he has hit the steel with one fist. The phalanges seem to break under such a huge collision. With great pain, the pain didn't beat M'Baku, but stimulated his blood and fighting spirit. Chapter 177. He continued to attack Chen Mo with his eyes red and teeth clenched, but again and again he was blocked by his hard iron fist. In this violent collision, Chen Mo's body, which was obviously thinner than him, was as stable as a rock without any shaking. On the contrary, when two fists collided, the mountain force that was transmitted from Chen Mo's hand was generally unshakable, which made his body shake and his feet unsteady. In this hard-to-hard collision, the skin on the face of Mubaku's fist began to crack and bleed gradually. When the two fists collided, the red blood splashed out. At the same time, his whole arm became numb under the violent impact. Chen Mo's bone strength is 7 times that of ordinary people, far harder than steel. Mubaku and Chen Mo are pounding with fists, which is equivalent to hitting a piece of hard and incomparable steel. Although Mubaku's fist is much harder than that of ordinary people, it is not as hard as steel, so the result is obvious. After more than 10 punches, M'Baku's fists have become bloody and fleshy. All day long, his arms are almost unconscious. He can't even lift them. He has completely lost the ability to resist. Mubaku, who broke out to attack Chen Mo with all his strength, only made more than 10 punches, but with all his strength breaking out, his physical energy consumption was extremely amazing. At this time he was panting, his face was red, his injured arm hung powerlessly on his side and his forehead was full of sweat. Looking at the calm Chen Mo in front of him, M'Baku couldn't help but turn his eyes to the fist that had just hit him. Chen Mo's hand has been stretched out at this time, and there are some red blood stains on the back of his hand. However, careful observation will show that, unlike his messy and bloody fist, the skin on the back of Chen Mo's hand is not damaged at all. The blood stains on it are only his blood when the two fists intersect. That is to say, Chen Mogan was not injured in the attack just now, and his fist was not only bruised by Chen Mo's iron fist, but also his arm was completely numb and lost his fighting power. You should know that even the hard stone will break under his full attack, but Chen Mo will not be damaged. Does he have the body of King Kong? Isn't that a legendary ability? Moreover, Chen Mo's face was relaxed at this time. Obviously, he had not used all his strength, or even said that he was not serious at all. M'Baku, who thought he was very powerful, did not expect that he could not fight back at all under Chen Mo's hands. The power gap between the two was so large. Before losing to Eric Kermungo, M'Baku could accept it. After all, Eric's height and body are bigger and stronger than him, and his strength is reasonable. But Chen Mo's height is a little shorter than him, and his body is not as strong as theirs. His muscles are all high and bulging. Compared with him and Eric, in fact, Chen Mo is more like a panther. He is slender, vigorous, and muscular, but he is not bloated at all. He gives people a sense of speed and explosive power. He originally thought that Chen Mo's advantage was that he would fight with him in terms of speed and flexibility. Unexpectedly, Chen Mo chose to fight hard and win in the face of his all-out effort. In this short-term fight, Chen Mo's super physical fitness, strong defense, and strength of bone and huge strength beyond steel shocked M'Baku's heart. The power of the Black Leopard has already been the limit of human beings that he can imagine, and Eric Kermungo's power to easily defeat the Black Leopard has surprised him. And Eric is different from the other people such as Terchara, who is good at agile and flexible fighting methods, his powerful and furious fighting style, and his huge and fierce body shape like the ancient giant beast. It's more like their ape people. M'Baku also secretly thought that it was the ape god they believed in, who sent Eric Kermungo to lead their whole Wakanda to power. Later, Eric Kermungo's action also verified his idea. The first decision made by Eric, who officially became king, was to gather elite soldiers and launch secret military operations. Their goal was to unify Africa. It's just at this time that Chen Mo is obviously more powerful than Eric Kermungo. At the same time, some superhuman forces beyond his imagination make him doubt his previous ideas. If Eric Kermungo is the ape god sent to lead their soldiers, what kind of existence is Chen Mo, who is more powerful than Eric? In a word, no matter how complicated his mind is, M'Baku has to admit defeat to Chen Mo and accept Chen Mo's leadership. Without any objection, Chen Mo took over the command and did not directly carry out the action. Instead, he went back to his position and sat down and asked Princess Suri, "How many stealth fighters does Wakanda have now?" Princess Su Rui turned her head and looked at M'Baku, who was defeated by Chen Mo hard and easily. She swallowed her mouth quietly and replied obediently, "Less than 100. Too few. Our goal is all the warlords on the whole African continent, and in order to ensure the smooth progress of the plan, the task must be completed in the shortest time, so we need more stealth fighters." Hearing this, Princess Su Rui raised her head proudly. "No problem, the manufacturing process of stealth fighters is not complicated, and the construction speed is very fast. I only need half a month to double the number of fighters." Chen Mo nods at the words. 200, almost enough. At this time, in addition to the soldiers of the Jabari tribe, the number of elite soldiers that can be used for decapitation reached 400, divided into 200 groups, 2 in each group. With the strength of these selected elites and the assistance of Wakanda's high-tech equipment, it is not difficult for them to complete the assassination mission with the cooperation of the 2 men. After all, their goal is just some African warlords, not the President of the United States. Although they also have defense forces around them, they are far behind in terms of soldiers, sharpness, and strictness of defense, which is not a threat to them at all. While ordering Princess Su Rui to make stealth aircraft with all her strength, Chen Mo also asked her to prepare a full set of combat equipment for 400 people as soon as possible, and distribute it to elite fighters of all ethnic groups who have arrived in Chi, including the Jabari tribal fighters who have been reluctant to use technology weapons. But at this time, they can't help it. Now it's a unified foreign military operation. Everything must be done according to the commander's orders. All they can do is obey. After the pre-war preparations were arranged and the meeting was over, the people left the meeting hall one after another, leaving only Chenmo, Eric Kermango, and M'Baku. M'Baku, what's your ape god's name? Ape God, chapter 178. When it comes to the god of his faith, M'Baku's eyes suddenly become devout. Though I don't know what Eric Kermango asked me, M'Baku replied with a little pious. The name of ape god is Hanuman. When M'Baku finished, Eric Kermango nodded slightly, raised the high-tech communication bracelet on his wrist, and Kimo Yuju projected a document in front of M'Baku. I think you should see this. M'Baku looked at the holographic projection screen in front of him doubtfully and read the information shown above. But as he kept looking down, the face of M'Baku began to change. Eric Kermango projected on the screen in front of M'Baku is actually a brief introduction and comparison between the Indian epic Ramayana and the Chinese classical mythological biography Journey to the West. The protagonist of the two books is a monkey, the Indian monkey god Hanuman, and the Chinese monkey king. There are many similarities between the descriptions of the two monkeys in the two books, and there seems to be 1,000 connections between them. First of all, both of them are inextricably related to the wind. Hanuman is the son of the god of wind. He has great power. He can fly up the vast sky and fly like the wind with the surging waves. And Sun Wukong absorbed the essence of the sun and moon by a fairy stone. It burst out and produced a stone egg. It turned into a stone monkey by the wind, and the power was immense. Sun Wukong, who learned how to spell, could also rise in clouds and fog, and had a somersault of 108,000 li. Secondly, Hanuman is tall and can change his height and image at will, while Monkey King's 72 changes are similar. The story of Journey to the West is the same. And as like as two peas of Baku, the name of the monkey god India is similar to their ape gods. Even the plots depicted in the two books are similar to the myths and legends in their tribes. Their ape god Hanuman was also born in the wind, and the weapon used was also a long stick. It was a coincidence that M'Baku himself did not believe it. That is to say, their ape god Hanuman, the Indian monkey god Hanuman, and the Chinese monkey king may actually be the same powerful existence, but the legends left in different countries are different. But his birth, appearance, strength, and weapons are quite consistent in many aspects. According to the time of their spread, the last place where Hanuman appeared was in China. Thinking of this, M'Baku can't help looking up at Chen Mo. Isn't he from China? At the same time, Wukong's swords and axes described in the Journey to the West, and King Kong's body, whose thunder and fire are all intact, remind M'Baku of Chen Mo's strong defensive power when they fought before. And Chen Mona seems to contain the power of mountains, and he can't shake any of his powerful power with all his strength. When I think of this, I can't help but make a surprising guess in M'Baku's mind. This. M'Baku looked at Chen Mo with a solemn and deep look, and then looked at Eric Kermango again. It's all true. Although I believe that my king won't cheat me, the significance behind this matter is too great for him to be careless. Eric Kermango took a bunch of chemo beads from his body and handed them to M'Baku. The Indian epic, Ramayana, and the Chinese mythological biography Journey to the West are well-known historical masterpieces in both countries. They can be found on the internet. What I show you is a simple plot comparison. You can search by yourself or simply find several people in their countries to verify by yourself. Slowly nodded, M'Baku did not refuse to use high-tech things as before, and those things were all unimportant when it came to the identity of God. Looking at Chen Mo with complicated expression, M'Baku took over Kimo Yuju from Eric Kermango and left the meeting hall. It's a matter of great importance. He must conduct thorough investigation and verification. The next day, M'Baku came to the palace hall again. Today, there are still only Eric Kermango and Chen Mo. They are sitting side by side in the chair and seem to have been waiting for him for a long time. The eyes of M'Baku to Chen Mo are very complicated. They are not only excited, revered, but also suspicious and uneasy. He spent a day looking up the legends about the monkey god Hanuman and monkey king of the two countries, and personally compared the similarities between them and the ape god Hanuman he believed in. The more in-depth research, the more certain M'Baku is, and the three are the same existence. Not only that, but after confirming the connection among the three, M'Baku also looked up all the information of Chen Mo through the intelligence organization War Dog in Wakanda. From this information, M'Baku found more amazing things. As the head of one of the 5 tribes in the kingdom of Wakanda, M'Baku has the right to use the power of War Dog within a certain limit, let alone just search for information. Chapter 179. After studying all of Chen Mo's information carefully, M'Baku decided that Chen Mo was definitely not an ordinary human. There are so many unusual things about him. According to the information of War Dog, before injecting the super soldier serum developed by the Strategic Science Reserve of the Secret Organization of the Allies, Chen Mo had far more strength and physical quality than ordinary people, even more powerful than the strengthened American Captain Steve Rogers. More than that, a piece of intelligence also records that among the underground forces in Brooklyn, there is a saying that when Chen Mo united the underground forces in Brooklyn, he used his body to avoid the continuous shooting of pistols and bullets. The bullet's speed exceeds the speed of sound. To avoid the bullet's shooting, not only must it have strong physical strength, speed, and explosive force, but also, most importantly, it must have strong dynamic visual capture ability and extraordinary response speed. It's easy to improve the strength after exercise. Even if it's more than the normal number of times, it can also be accepted. But dynamic vision and response speed involve the brain's neural level ability, which can't be improved by exercise. This kind of ability seems simple. In fact, it has gone beyond the limit of human beings, more like a powerful power possessed by the great existence in the myth and legend, which is very similar to the ability of eye-catching. Chen Mo's performance on the battlefield of World War II is even more powerful. With one man's strength, he is forced to break into the 9-headed snake base, which is guarded by a powerful 9-headed snake army. In the rain of gunfire and bullets, he killed all the armor and heavy weapons, even the huge war tanks with several floors and steel fortresses. They were just like paper paste in front of him. They did not pose any threat to him at all, but they were easily solved by him. In addition to his powerful ability to transcend the limits of human beings, Chen Mo's origin is also mysterious. It is said that he comes from a mysterious and huge hidden family in China and has amazing wealth that can be matched by other countries. 70 years ago, he was able to hand out hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire Howard Stark's shares in Stark Group. Obviously, he has more wealth than these, and from his performance, he didn't pay attention to the wealth that can make countless people crazy. After acquiring the shares of Stark Industry, he directly handed over the management right and income to Howard. Not long ago, he simply gave all the shares worth tens of billions of dollars to his godson, Tony Stark. It can be seen that he was light on wealth. Look at. It seems that there is only one way to explain the source of this huge wealth and his attitude towards it. If you are ordinary people, even if you find these unusual things, you will only think that he is very powerful and won't go to other places at all, because those special things in him can be explained. The powerful power is obtained by cultivating the powerful martial arts script handed down from ancient China, and the wealth is also accumulated by the family for thousands of years. At that time, no one doubted, but there seemed to be no other possibility except these explanations, so they accepted this seemingly reasonable statement. And M'Baku's starting point is different from them. He himself is to examine Chen Mo's life with a kind of speculation that makes people feel very crazy. Those things that were said to be true by himself seem to have some problems in his mind at this time. On the contrary, the impossible speculation in his mind is more understandable and more acceptable. Through the intricate connection and many similarities between the ape god Hanuman of Jabari tribe, the Indian monkey god Hanuman, and the Chinese monkey king, it can be concluded that these three are in fact the same great existence. Thousands to hundreds of years ago, he left his own legends in Africa, India, and the vast land of China. According to the time of the legend, he probably stayed in China at last, and Chen Mo is a strong presence from China, with inhuman power and many magical abilities. If Chen Mo is Hanuman, then everything makes sense. A person who has lived for thousands of years, has a strong power, and is immortal. It's a simple thing to want to have a huge wealth of a country with great wealth. It's so simple that he has no sense of money at all, and no amount of wealth is just a number in his eyes. His strength, his speed, his non-human dynamic vision and responsibility, even harder than steel. The body of King Kong is not bad, all of which can correspond to the legend, and all the unusual things on his body are explained. With a preliminary conclusion in mind, M'Baku hurried to the palace hall with a very complicated mood. He will personally carry out the final verification to Chen Mo, thoroughly solve the doubts in his heart and find an answer. At this time, only Eric Kermango and Chen Mo were in the meeting hall except for M'Baku, and not even the female soldiers of the Women's Royal Guard who were supposed to be on guard. Just before entering the meeting hall, M'Baku found that they were all arranged to be on guard outside the hall. As long as the door of the meeting hall was closed, no one outside except the three inside could hear what they said. He looks at Chen Mo with complicated looks. All kinds of emotions are constantly changing in his face. He wants to ask questions, but he can't open his mouth. If Chen Mo really is their ape god Hanuman, then he directly questions whether it's disrespectful to ask God to prove his identity. Just as M'Baku was struggling, Chen Mo suddenly rose slowly from his seat and stood up. Eric Kermungo and M'Baku on one side couldn't help but look at Chen Mo at the same time. Under the eyes of the two men, Chen Mo stood still, motionless, but his body began to change dramatically. Already very tall body slowly increased, 2 meters and 1, until almost the same height as Eric Kermungo stopped, more than 1 head higher than before. At the same time, his body is also expanding. Although he was strong, he was slender and vigorous, full of speed and explosive force. With the increase of his height, Chen Mo's muscles are also bulging rapidly. It seems that there is an infinite and powerful power in it, which can explode an amazing, devastating attack at any time. In addition to the changes in height and body shape, Chen Mo's face has also changed dramatically. Chapter 180. The muscles on the face began to wriggle slowly. The original handsome face with clear edges and corners gradually changed. The cheeks gradually widened. The lips gradually thickened and protruded, and the whole face shape and facial features became greatly different from the original. At the same time of astonishing changes in height, body shape, and face, Chen Mo's skin color is gradually deepening and turning black. Finally, when a series of changes on Chen Mo stopped, a huge, strong black man appeared in front of Eric and M'Baku. Two faces as like as two peas, especially Eric Care, because he faces almost the same as he does. At this time, Chen Mo is totally another Eric Kermango, no matter from the aspect of appearance or height and figure. In a short time of more than 10 seconds, Chen Mo, under the eyes of two people, has become the king of the kingdom of Wakanda from the original image of Chinese people. He is totally different from his original Eric Kermango in height, body shape, color, and appearance. Eric Kerr, as like as two peas, looked at himself as if he were just like himself. He was completely in shock. What he said was not knowing what he was saying. But after Mubaku's shock, there were two excited lights in his eyes and the whole man became excited. His voice was shaking and he cried out, "The art of change, 72 changes." As soon as the voice came down, M'Baku could no longer contain the excitement in his heart. He knelt heavily on his knees and crawled forward on the ground, shouting at Chen Mo, "Hanuman, my God." Although Chen Mo's changes are amazing, they are not so mysterious. Chen Mo is like as two peas before crossing the world captain. The body's potential was stimulated in the air crash, and his physical quality reached 4 times that of the normal person. At that time, he could control the body very carefully, though it could not completely change his physique and appearance, but it could also change to a certain extent, with a carefully made silicone mask. After that, he basically didn't see any flaws. In addition, he was able to control the vocal cords and imitate the voice of others, so he was able to pretend to be a Red Skull and successfully enter the Hydra and completely control it. After that, Chen Mo discovered the great effect on the body's fine control ability and consciously exercised. With the improvement of physical quality, Chen Mo's control over the body is becoming stronger and stronger. Now, 7 times the physical quality of ordinary people, he has been able to completely control every muscle of the whole god, including more than 600 fast skeletal muscles, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle distributed in the visceral blood vessels, which is beyond the control of ordinary people. He can control these muscles very finely, make them cooperate with each other, stretch and support the spine, increase the height. At the same time, a large amount of blood injection can also make the muscles expand and realize the change of body shape. The change of face is more complex. It needs to control dozens of muscles in the face very carefully and increase the accumulation of blood and tissue fluid in some parts of the face, so as to change the face shape and face. People usually control the body to make various actions, relying on the motor nervous system. In addition, there is a set of vegetative nervous system in the human body. The autonomic nervous system is a set of unconsciously controlled system relative to the motor nervous system, which is composed of sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Under the control of cerebral cortex and hypothalamus, it controls and regulates the activity and secretion of organs, blood vessels, smooth muscles and glands, and participates in the endocrine regulation of glucose, fat, water and electrolyte tanks, as well as temperature, sleep and blood pressure. Ordinary people can't control the motor nervous system completely. Many difficult movements and fine activities can't be completed. In addition to mastering the motor nervous system perfectly and accomplishing things that are very difficult or even impossible for ordinary people, Chen Mo can also control the vegetative nerves that ordinary people can't control at all, so as to realize the complete control and thorough control of the body. But not all the activities of human body are under the control of these two systems. There are many activities at the cellular level that occur only because of the instinct of cells, or because of specific stimulation from the outside world, for example, the secretion of melanin. Under normal circumstances, melanin is secreted and synthesized passively by melanocytes under ultraviolet irradiation. However, Chen Mo can directly control the melanocytes in the skin, independently secrete melanin, and realize the change of skin color. Chen Mo's complete control of the body includes not only muscles, but also all the physical activities under the control of nerves, including the secretion of hormones by glands and the production of blood by bone marrow. Even the activities of cells that are not under the control of nerves can be controlled to a certain extent by Chen Mo. This ability can not only be achieved if the physical quality is high enough, even if Eric Kermungo's physical quality is the same as Chen Mo. Mo is different from American Captain Steve and Eric Kermango. Don't forget that he is an extremely rare superpower. The strong physical quality is only a part of his strength. Although it seems that the strong physical strength is his most aggressive and powerful ability at present, what is really precious is his highly developed brain, strong spiritual strength, and magical spatial ability. Although it's not easy to strengthen physical strength, there are many ways for ordinary people to easily obtain strong physical quality. At present, Chen Mo has been exposed to super soldier serum, werewolf blood, vampire blood, and perfect blood, as well as Vakanda's heart-shaped herbs. All of these things can make an ordinary person gain powerful power several times faster than ordinary people. But the development of brain and the promotion of mental power are not easy, or even very difficult. Up to now, Chen Mo has not found a way to increase brain development and mental power as quickly as to improve physical strength. Although his brain area and mental strength are enhanced with the improvement of his physical quality when receiving super soldier serum and perfect blood, but it has something to do with the special talents of his own superpowers. Others don't.